Chapter 4298. But soon, Old Wu realized that the atmosphere wasn't right. The reason for that was because the people of the Purple Gold Divine Dragon Clan were looking at him with eyes filled with fury. What's going on? A trace of suspicion crept into his heart. But suddenly he noticed Dong Laifu standing next to Qin Feiyang and the other two and was shocked. What was going on? Why was Dong Laifu standing next to Qin Feiyang and the other two? He's here. The king turned to look at him with disappointment in his eyes. Old Wu was a little nervous. Why did everyone look so strange? Do you know him? The king pointed at Dong Laifu and asked. Old Wu looked at Dong Laifu and nodded. Yes, he's from the Central Dynasty. Are you familiar with him? The king asked again. No. Old Wu shook his head. Not familiar. If you weren't familiar with him, would you go to Qingyang Mountain with Dong Laifu? If you weren't familiar with him, would you help him record the video of the Heavenly Lord killing Lu Yuntian's family and spread it overnight? The king roared. This, Old Wu's face changed. Dong Laifu has already confessed. Are you still going to explain? The king's eyes flashed with killing intent, which made Old Wu feel like he was in an abyss. He quickly knelt in the void and said, It's not like that. Let me explain. What's there to explain? I really didn't expect you to betray us and be bought over by the Central Dynasty. The king was heartbroken. No, Dong Laifu forced me to do this. Old Wu shook his head. Bastard. The truth is right in front of you. You're still talking nonsense. Haven't the Purple Gold Divine Dragon race been good to you all these years? The king treats you like a brother. Tianyu and the Heavenly Lord treat you like a grandfather. We, the 10 supremacies in the eyes of outsiders, are also polite to you. Is this how you repay us? The 10 supremacies of the Purple Gold Divine Dragon race shouted. Old Wu was flustered looking at the angry group of people. Suddenly, he took a big stride forward and arrived behind Dong Qingyuan. Panicked, he cried out, Save me, my lord! However, the moment Dong Qingyuan closed his eyes, he did not open them again. No one knew what he was thinking at that moment. The anger on his face had also disappeared. He appeared abnormally calm, so calm that it was frightening. Wang. At this moment, the other sovereigns of the human race and the god race also arrived with the city, Lord of the Divine City and the Lord of the Disciplinary Hall of Mount Supreme. The two of them were not as lucky as Old Wu. His entire body was drenched in blood. His sea of qi had also been destroyed. Sovereign, please spare my life. Lord Divine King, please give me another chance. As soon as the two of them arrived, they immediately knelt in front of the Divine King and Ji Zun, crying and begging for mercy. Give you a chance. When you betrayed us, did you ever think about our feelings? A city lord of Godhead City and a hall lord of the Hall of Law Enforcement. You can say that we're handing over the lives and deaths of countless people to you. Is this how you repay us? The Divine King and Ji Zun's faces were gloomy. Sorry, we were confused for a moment. We will definitely repent. Give us another chance, please. The two of them were terrified. They never thought that one day their identities would be found out. Shut up. The Divine King raised his hand and slapped the city Lord of Godhead City's face. He said angrily, Answer me. What exactly did the Central Dynasty give you? The two of them looked at Dong Qingyuan for help. Seeing that Dong Qingyuan turned a deaf ear to them, the two of them were desperate. Speak. The Divine King was furious. Nothing. At first, it was the Dragon God and Neptune who came to us. Later, the Dragon God and Neptune fell into the hands of Qin Feiyang. We thought this matter was over, and we even planned to stop being their informants. However, we didn't expect that Neptune had already told the Central Dynasty about our situation when he went to the Dragon God. A few days ago, Dong Laifu suddenly came to us and asked us to continue working for them. My lord, we had no choice. They're from the Central Dynasty. Do we dare to go against them? The two of them cried. Ha ha! The Divine King laughed and shook his head. Do you think we're stupid? The City Lord of Godhead City and the Hall Lord of the Hall of Law Enforcement of Mount Supreme have great power. If they didn't promise you anything, would you take such a big risk and betray us? We really didn't. The two of them hurriedly shook their heads. Say it again, did you or did you not? The Divine King stared at the two of them with murderous intent. The two of them were trembling. At the same time, Qin Feiyang looked at old Wu and the others with flickering eyes. That's right. There's definitely a reason why these people betrayed the Divine King, the King, and the Lord of Humanity. Even if they betrayed them because they wanted to get some benefits from Neptune and the Dragon God. Now that Neptune and the Dragon God were dead, they still chose to continue working for the Central Dynasty. This meant that Dong Qingyuan must have promised them something. Why don't we just ask Dong Laifu if he promised them anything? Qin Feiyang smiled. The Divine King was a bit surprised and immediately looked at Dong Laifu. We did promise them some benefits. Saying that, Dong Laifu suddenly shook his head. No, to be exact, this was a condition that they brought up. What condition? The Divine King said in a low voice. Dong Laifu, don't talk nonsense. The City Lord roared. Pa! But before he could finish, the Divine King slapped him again. The City Lord spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body was mangled and twisted. From this, one could see just how strong the slap was. If you dare say another word, I'll make you wish you were dead. The Divine King gloomily said. Then he looked at Dong Laifu and said, Continue. They brought up different conditions. The City Lord's condition was to help him sit on the Divine King's throne in the future. This is because he has long been dissatisfied with your rule over the Divine King. As for the 10 sovereigns of your god race, his condition was to enter the Central Dynasty. Dong Laifu said, What? He wants to usurp my position as the Divine King. You're quite ambitious. The Divine King glared at the City Lord. She really didn't expect this person she had always trusted to be so ambitious. The City Lord was both panicked and desperate. And you'd? The Divine King then looked at the 10 sovereigns hiding behind Dong Qingyuan and sneered. Although it said that men strive for greater heights and water flows to lower depths, your betrayal of your master is simply laughable. You are a disgrace to the god race. The 10 sovereigns lowered their heads, trembling in fear and not daring to speak. As expected, this is a wonderful show. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 exchanged glances, their faces full of smiles. This way, all the members of the god race would be even more dissatisfied with the Central Dynasty. The white-eyed wolf purposely asked loudly, Dong Laifu, what conditions did the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall, the 3rd Sovereign, and Old Wu of the Purple Gold Divine Dragon Race propose? Don't say it. We're begging you. The 3 looked at Dong Laifu in panic and roared. But Dong Laifu ignored them and said, Old Wu's condition is to help him obtain 3,000 clones. The Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall and the 3rd Sovereign's conditions are similar to the 2 from the god race. One wants to enter the Central Dynasty, and the other wants to become the sovereign of the human race. Old Wu and the other 2 slumped to the ground, their faces ashen. If they knew about this, the monarch and the human sovereign would not let them go. Why did it become like this? Why, haha. How wonderful. The white-eyed wolf laughed and looked at the monarch and the other 2. Let me ask you, are you surprised? The 3's faces were dark. Qin Feiyang chuckled and looked at Dong Laifu. So, you've agreed to their conditions? Yes. Dong Qingyuan agreed. Actually, in the eyes of the Central Dynasty, the god race, the human race, and the purple gold divine dragon race are just cannon fodder. Dong Laifu said, Bastard, and you're still treating us like cannon fodder. Your Majesty, Your Majesty, Your Majesty, Your Majesty, let's rebel. This kind of sovereign, this kind of central dynasty is not worth our lives. In front of them, we don't even have the least bit of dignity. At these words, everyone from the 3 major races present couldn't help but roar. The monarch and the other 2 were silent. This was indeed a good opportunity to revolt, because as long as they expressed their stance now, the people of the 3 major races would definitely follow them and rebel against the central dynasty. However, they hadn't figured out the foundation of the central dynasty yet, so they couldn't risk the fate of the 3 major races. So, they had to continue to endure. I really didn't expect things to develop to this point. In the distance, Dong Tianqin and the other 2 looked solemn. Yes, this Qin Feiyang is really terrifying. Such a sure-death situation. Not only did he solve it easily, but he also made the creatures of the 4 continents hostile to the central dynasty. If this matter continues, our divine kingdom will fall apart. At this moment, the 3 of them were full of fear toward Qin Feiyang and the others. In the past, they were afraid of the strength of Qin Feiyang and the others, but now they were afraid of the means of Qin Feiyang and the others. This was purely playing them in the palm of his hand, and they were powerless to refute. Suddenly, there was a loud laugh. Everyone looked at Dong Qingyuan. Now he was still in the mood to laugh? Was he stupid? Dong Qingyuan finally opened his eyes and scanned the city. In the end, he looked at Qin Feiyang and the other 2. Instead of anger, his old face was full of admiration. What are you looking at? Do you suddenly feel that the 3 of us are very handsome and want to marry your granddaughter to us? The white-eyed wolf looked at him jokingly. Ha ha! Dong Qingyuan couldn't stop laughing as if he had gone crazy. The white-eyed wolf frowned. He couldn't take this blow. Was he really crazy? Amazing! Young people of the divine kingdom. No, even the older generation of the divine kingdom has to admit defeat in front of you. Dong Qingyuan gradually stopped laughing and looked at the 3 of them. End of chapter. Chapter 40, 299. You're praising us? The white-eyed wolf looked at Qin Feiyang and the madman in shock. Was this old man crazy? What we've done is worthy of praise. The madman laughed shamelessly. The white-eyed wolf's mouth twitched. How could he be more shameless than him? However, Qin Feiyang didn't say anything. He just looked at Dong Qingyuan silently. Dong Qingyuan was so calm. Did he have something to rely on? Logically speaking, all of Dong Qingyuan's plans had been exposed by them, so he should have been driven to desperation. Especially Dong Laifu's betrayal. If it were anyone else, it would be impossible for them to be so calm. You guys are really powerful. Not only did you destroy my plan, but you also checkmated me. But so what? Even if the monarch and the others know about this, will they still attack me? Dong Qingyuan slammed the crutch in his hand, and a terrifying sovereign's aura rolled out. His entire body also exploded with a shocking aura. A sovereign divine weapon. Qin Feiyang and the others narrowed their eyes as they stared at the crutch in Dong Qingyuan's hand. This should be the pinnacle, sovereign divine weapon that Dong Laifu mentioned. The monarch and the others also looked at the crutch in shock. Of course, they were no stranger to this crutch. As Dong Qingyuan had always carried it with him, they usually didn't see anything special about it. They never expected it to be such a terrifying, sovereign divine weapon. Dong Qingyuan looked at the monarch and the others with a cold glint in his eyes. He said, I order you to surround Qin Feiyang and the others immediately. The monarch and the others couldn't help but frown when they heard this. His attitude was still so arrogant. What? Do you really want to rebel? Let me tell you, the divine kingdom can create you, and it can also destroy you. Dong Qingyuan's eyes were gloomy and overbearing. This caused the monarch and the other 2 monarchs to feel a surge of anger rising in their hearts. Did he really think he was someone important? Seeing Dong Qingyuan's domineering attitude, the spies also gained some confidence. The 10 reverends of the god race said, "Divine King, Monarch, we're not betraying you at all." "What did you say?" The divine kingdom stared at the 10 lords with undisguised, killing intent. "Whether it's you or us, we're all citizens of the divine kingdom. We're loyal to the central dynasty and the Lord Ruler. What's wrong with that?" The 10 venerables coldly snorted. "That's right. Your vision is too small. Do you think that we should be loyal to you just because we are from the 3 major races? What a joke! Are you greater than the central dynasty and the Lord Ruler?" The 3 martial highnesses of the human race and Old Wu spoke too. All right. The monarch and the other 2 nodded. They were so angry that they laughed. "Lord Dong Qingyuan is an emissary sent by the emperor. If you don't listen to his orders, you are rebelling. Do you know the consequences of rebelling? Therefore, you should listen to me obediently. Otherwise, the 3 tribes will be wiped out." The spies sneered. They couldn't be blamed for being so arrogant. It was all because Dong Qingyuan's current performance was too domineering. Unknowingly, it gave them a lot of confidence and courage. Little did they know, the monarch and the other 2 were already extremely angry. Now he was deliberately provoking them. Wasn't this the same as challenging their bottom line? Boom! Accompanied by a terrifying murderous aura, the divine king took a step forward and landed in front of the city, lord of the divine city. He slammed his palm down. "No!" the city lord of the divine city screamed. Before he could celebrate, the god of death had already arrived. However, the divine king didn't show any mercy. As the power of law appeared, a shocking aura erupted. The city lord of the divine city screamed as blood splattered all over the sky. Immediately after, the divine king grabbed the city lord's divine soul. "Lord, please don't kill me," the city lord's divine soul wailed. This sudden scene was undoubtedly a wake-up call for the 3 martial highnesses, the 10 martial highnesses and Old Wu. His arrogance vanished in an instant, leaving behind only a look of horror, especially the hall master of the law enforcement hall, who was paralyzed in front of the sovereign of the human race. He was so scared that he even peed. "Do you think Dong Qingyuan can protect you? Don't forget, this is the 4 great continents, not the central dynasty." The divine king smiled coldly and clenched his fist. The divine soul of the city lord immediately let out a mournful cry and was destroyed. Old Wu and the other 2 trembled. That's right. They were now in the 4 great continents. The master of the 4 great continents was the divine king, the sovereign of the human race. Here they had the final say. As for Dong Qingyuan, although he had a peak-level sovereign divine weapon, the powerhouses of the 3 races were not to be trifled with. Dong Qingyuan might not be their opponent. Moreover, isn't there a saying that goes like this? A strong dragon couldn't suppress a snake in its old haunts. No matter how high Dong Qingyuan's status was and how strong he was, in the 4 great continents, the emperor was far away. What could he do? More importantly, right now, the people of the 3 major races all loathed Dong Qingyuan to the core. The central dynasty's actions had already aroused public anger. Previously, many people had already proposed to resist the central dynasty's rule. In such a situation, it was already very good that Dong Qingyuan could protect himself. How could he have the heart to protect them? At this moment, the great venerable of the human race also pointed at the hall master of the law enforcement hall who was paralyzed in the void. He looked at the sovereign of the human race and asked, "Sovereign, should we kill this person? He betrayed his own race and has wild ambitions. Of course, we must kill him." The sovereign of the human race said without hesitation. His tone was also murderous. Hearing this, the great venerable stepped in front of the hall master of the law enforcement hall. Great Venerable, please don't kill me. I already know my mistakes, and I promise to repent. Give me a chance. No. But before he finished speaking, the Great Venerable's palm fell, accompanied by a helpless scream. Blood splashed in the sky, and his body and divine soul were both shattered. 2 overlords had died so tragically at the hands of a divine king and a great venerable. Old Wu and the other 2, who were hiding behind Dong Qingyuan, were pale and trembling. The divine king and the sovereign of the human race had used practical actions to prove that the spies had to be killed. The divine king looked at Dong Qingyuan and said, "We're killing the spies in our race. You won't interfere, right?" Dong Qingyuan held his walking stick, and his eyes were frighteningly gloomy. This was obviously a slap to his face. Does he dare to interfere? If he dares to interfere, I'll kill him. The inner demons stared at Dong Qingyuan with murderous intent. How dare you? Dong Qingyuan suddenly looked at the inner demons. How dare you be so arrogant after killing my family? The inner demons grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. But this smile made people's hair stand on end. Lu Jiajin took a step forward and landed in front of Dong Qingyuan. Old man, it seems that you still don't know much about us. Do you really think that we won't dare to touch you just because you have the emperor's support? Dong Qingyuan was shocked and angry. You, but before he could say anything, a monstrous, evil aura surged. The inner demons took a step toward Dong Qingyuan. The life and death laws and the ultimate mysteries of the 6 supreme laws appeared out of nowhere. He roared, "Old man, pay with your life for my family." Boom! Immediately, the 7 ultimate mysteries charged toward Dong Qingyuan. Oh no! Protect the people of Qingtian City. The Lord was startled. Once a battle of this level started, the people would definitely be plunged into misery and suffering. Before he finished speaking, the Lord and Heavenly Lord Ji activated their 3,000 clones at the same time. The power of Dharma laws appeared and formed a giant shield above the city. Boom! At the same time, the walking stick in Dong Qingyuan's hand also let out a dazzling light, and the power of a ruler appeared in all directions. If you dare to be presumptuous again, you and your brothers will never return to the central dynasty. As he shouted, the walking stick shattered the sky and attacked the 7 ultimate mysteries. A peak-level ruler's divine weapon was indeed powerful. Even the life and death laws and the dual will of heaven couldn't compete with it and were instantly destroyed. There's no point in returning to the central dynasty. Besides, do you think it's our loss that you won't let us return to the central dynasty? No, it's your loss, because you've lost 2 real, peerless talents. In the future, you'll have 2 more terrifying enemies because we can join forces with Qin Feiyang and attack the central dynasty. The inner demons sneered. Dong Qingyuan was startled. If that was the case, the Lord Emperor might not let him go. How did things develop to this point? Today you must die. Not even a peak-level ruler's divine weapon can stop me from killing you. The heart demon looked extremely ferocious as it charged towards Dong Qingyuan step by step. Its scarlet hair fluttered and its baleful aura surged. Senior Wu and the other 2, who were hiding behind Dong Qingyuan, could not help feeling frightened. Was this Lu Yuntian's courage and strength? He was simply an untamable beast. Clang! Dong Qingyuan was also very nervous. He swept the walking stick in the air and attacked the inner demons. How dare you do this with a peak-level ruler's divine weapon? Kneel down and surrender, the inner demons shouted. Murderous intent surged. In the next second, the Demon King true form was activated. Each of the Demon Kings was as large as a mountain, and the murderous intent they exuded was even more terrifying than the inner demons. Boom! The life and death law's ultimate mysteries, the 6 ultimate mysteries, and the dual wills of the Great Path were all activated in an instant. The walking stick, a peak-level ruler's divine weapon, couldn't help but tremble in the face of such a terrifying lineup, because its limit was equivalent to 1,000 low-level rulers' divine weapons. These 21,000 ultimate mysteries and the dual wills of the Great Path were enough to kill it instantly. Crack! As expected. In just an instant, the walking stick broke into pieces. This was the inner demons being merciful and denying that this peak-level ruler's divine weapon had been destroyed. Surrender. The inner demons looked at the walking stick with an imposing aura and roared. Immediately, under Dong Qingyuan's furious gaze, the broken walking stick obediently submitted to the inner demons. This was the inner demons' method. Even a peak-level ruler's divine weapon had to surrender. Not to mention anything else. Just the terrifying aura alone was enough to intimidate everything in the world. As expected of Qin Feiyang's inner demons. Not bad. This guy is even more terrifying than Qin Feiyang. The monarch stared at the inner demons, his eyes full of awe. Yes, if he had fought with us all these years, I'm afraid that our 3 races would have followed in the footsteps of the Sea Clan and the Beast Clan. The Divine King and the human clan supremacy thought to themselves. Although Qin Feiyang's methods were terrifying, he was a person who valued relationships. Once this heart demon went berserk, it would be a master who would not recognize anyone and would kill everyone without mercy. End of chapter. Chapter 40, 300. As the cane surrendered, Dong Qingyuan's face became extremely ferocious. He shouted, "Dong Tianqin, Dong Xian, Dong Ping, come and help me." Dong Tianqin and the others are here too? Everyone was shocked. Dong Tianqin and the other two's methods were obvious to all. If they came to help Dong Qingyuan, Lu Yuntian and Lu Yinfeng might not be able to defeat them. In the distance, Dong Tianqin and the other two frowned. Qin Feiyang was at the scene. If they attacked now, wouldn't it be asking them to court death? Hurry up! Are you going to disobey my orders too? Dong Qingyuan turned to look at the 3 and shouted. The 3 frowned and flew over. Do you dare to attack? Qin Feiyang looked at the 3 of them and chuckled. The 3's pupils shrank and immediately stopped. Dong Tianqin was bound by the blood oath. Dong Ping and Dong Xian were also controlled by the soul-controlling technique. If Qin Feiyang wanted to kill them, it would be too easy. Dong Qingyuan, you have nowhere to go. The white-eyed wolf looked at him mockingly. Dong Qingyuan clenched his fists. Suddenly, a destructive aura rushed out of his body. Self-destruct? Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. What was going on? Why did he choose to self-destruct? Didn't Dong Laifu say that he didn't leave his divine soul in the central dynasty? Qin Feiyang, just you wait. You will fall into my hands sooner or later. Dong Qingyuan stared at Qin Feiyang and smiled coldly. In the next moment, his body exploded, and a wave of destructive energy surged out in all directions. Go! Seeing that the situation was not good, Old Wu, the 3 supremacies of the human race and the 10 supremacies of the god race turned around and ran. Want to run? The Lord smiled coldly. Accompanied by a loud clang, the divine dragon's sword appeared and instantly erased the self-destruct wave. Then, the divine dragon's sword charged toward the 3. No! The 3 screamed. They activated their ultimate profound meanings and charged toward the divine dragon sword. However, the divine dragon sword was a high-grade, sovereign divine weapon. Among the 3 of them, Old Wu had not even grasped the will of the heavenly Tao. How could he be a match for the divine dragon sword? Following a miserable cry of despair, the 3 people's bodies shattered on the spot. Their souls ran out and fled in panic. Today, if I don't let you taste a fate worse than death, I'll be letting down your wild ambitions. The Divine King took a step forward, and the power of various laws emerged, turning into a terrifying storm that swept towards the souls of the three. No! I beg you, the three people's divine souls were engulfed by the storm. The wind blades were like sharp blades, cutting their divine souls. They kept begging, falling into the abyss of despair. Seeing this scene, not only did no one plead for them, their hearts were filled with joy. This is what a traitor deserves. Several hundred breaths passed. Under the endless pain, their souls were finally ground away bit by bit. Not even a single strand of hair was left. The divine king finally vented his anger. With a wave of his hand, the storm dissipated. Peace gradually returned to the world. Dong Lifu, what's going on? Didn't you say that Dong Qingyuan didn't leave his divine soul in the Central Dynasty? Qin Feiyang turned to look at Dong Lifu and frowned. As far as I know, he didn't. Dong Lifu also looked suspicious. The madman glanced at Dong Lifu, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said he's controlled by the soul-controlling technique, so he definitely won't lie to us. It can only be said that Dong Qingyuan is too cunning. He even hid it from Dong Lifu. I wanted to get rid of him this time, but I didn't expect him to have a trick up his sleeve. Qin Feiyang shook his head. That was a bit regretful. Dong Qingyuan was not only the emperor's confidant, but also the manager of the Death God army. If he could be killed, it would be a great loss for the emperor of the Central Dynasty. It doesn't matter. If we can force him to self-destruct this time, we can still kill him next time. The madman waved his hand, not taking it seriously at all. To be honest, as long as the main forces of the Central Dynasty didn't arrive, he wasn't afraid. Heavenly Lord Ji, how do you want to die? Suddenly, a cold, bone-chilling voice sounded. Everyone was stunned and hurriedly looked at the inner demons and Lu Jijin, only to see the two of them staring at Heavenly Lord Ji with murderous intent in their eyes. Heavenly Lord Ji was also shocked and looked up at the two of them. Although it was Dong Qingyuan and the others who instigated this, our family members were indeed killed by you. So you must pay the price, the inner demons said. You, the king, glared at the two of them. Father, Heavenly Lord Ji stopped the king and sighed. I really should give them an explanation for this matter. But it's not your fault. Dong Qingyuan and the others forced me to do this. The king hurriedly said. The supremacies also glared at the inner demons and roared. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. If you want to kill, go kill Dong Qingyuan and Dong Lifu. Do you want to die too? The inner demons looked at the group of supremacies with a fierce light in his eyes. Do you think we're afraid of you? The purple gold divine dragon clan is not to be trifled with. The supremacies made up their minds and activated their ultimate intents. The will of heaven erupted, and the heavenly might shook the surroundings. No. Heavenly Lord Ji hurriedly stopped the 10 supremacies and said in a deep voice, They're not scary, but the Central Dynasty behind them is. Don't forget that they're now from the Central Dynasty and have the support of the Emperor. But the 10 supremacies frowned. You don't have to say anything. I'll take care of it. Heavenly Lord Ji waved his hand and looked at the inner demons and said in a deep voice, I'll take responsibility for what I did. You can take my life if you want, but please don't take revenge on the purple gold divine dragon clan. You're quite benevolent. Okay, then kill yourself. The inner demons sneered. Clan leader, no. You're our backbone. Besides, we're not afraid of the Central Dynasty. We'll fight them to the death. The 10 supremacies were extremely anxious. I know you're not afraid, but we can't fall out with the Central Dynasty now. Everyone must endure and wait for the right time. Heavenly Lord Ji said telepathically. This sentence clearly had a hidden meaning, but he didn't know if the 10 supremacies could understand it. Endure, wait for the right time. The 10 supremacies pondered over this sentence. At the same time, Heavenly Lord Ji looked at the inner demons and said, Please do as you say. As his voice fell, a destructive aura rushed out of his body. Heavenly Lord! Clan leader! The king and the 10 supremacies roared. Boom! The next moment, Heavenly Lord G's body exploded. The divine king sighed deeply and took out his high-grade sovereign weapon to quickly erase the explosion. Lu Yuntian, Lu Yunfeng, I'm not done with you. The 10 supremacies roared and rushed toward the inner demons with murderous intent. Stop right there. The king shouted. King! The 10 of them stopped and turned to look at the monarch. The king shouted. The heavenly monarch used his death in exchange for the peace of our purple gold divine dragon race. Do you want to let down his efforts? But the 10 venerables lowered their heads and clenched their fists tightly. No buts. This matter ends here. The monarch raised his head to look at the inner demon's duo with a solemn expression. Are you satisfied now? Satisfied, 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 satisfied. Please don't harass my purple gold divine dragon clan anymore. Let's go. With that, he opened a space-time tunnel and led the 10 venerables away without looking back. Qin Feiyang, Madman M.O., Golden Winged Wolf King. Seeing that you helped us find the spy, we won't hunt you down this time. However, don't blame us for being merciless the next time we meet. The Divine King looked at Qin Feiyang and said coldly. Then he opened a space-time tunnel and left with the 9 venerables. The supreme being of the human clan silently glanced at Qin Feiyang and the other 2. Then he turned around and left with the 9 supreme beings. Soon, there were only Qin Feiyang, the mad scientist, the white-eyed wolf, Dong Laifu, the inner demons, and Lu Jiajin left. The people in the city looked at the king and the others leaving, then looked at Qin Feiyang and the others in the sky and were filled with emotions. They were supposed to go after Qin Feiyang and the other 2, but in the end, Qin Feiyang and the other 2 weren't injured at all. They didn't even attack from the beginning to the end. On the contrary, Heavenly Monarch Ji, Dong Qingyuan, and Old Lord Wu died one after another. Although Old Lord Wu and the other spies deserved to die, it was undeniable that it was a loss for the 3 races. What a pity for Heavenly Monarch Ji. Although he's the leader of the Purple Gold Dragons, he's really nice. It's all Dong Qingyuan's fault. No, the Central Dynasty deserves to die. They used all kinds of despicable methods to deal with Qin Feiyang and the others. But in the end, the 3 races were implicated. What are the king, the divine king, and the lord of the human race thinking? The Central Dynasty has already treated us like this. Why aren't we fighting back? Are we going to wait for death? People were filled with indignation. Their hatred for the Central Dynasty rose to an unprecedented level. Seeing all this, Qin Feiyang and the other 2 revealed a trace of a smile in their eyes. This result was even more perfect than they had anticipated. They had the right time and place. Now they just needed to find out the power of the Central Dynasty, and then they could directly declare war. Cousin, let's meet at the 1,000 Phoenix Mountain later. I've also made an appointment with the king and the others. They'll all come later. Qin Feiyang said. Okay, Lu Jiajin replied. Even he couldn't help but praise Qin Feiyang's plan this time. A few spies were only a small problem. Provoking the anger and hatred of the 3 races against the Central Dynasty was the biggest reward. Qin Feiyang coughed and looked at the inner demons and Lu Jiajin. He smiled and said, "Shall we continue?" Hearing this, the people below couldn't help but look at them. The strength of Qin Feiyang and the others was obvious. Lu Yuntian and Lu Yinfeng weren't simple people either. If these people were to fight, it would definitely be an exciting battle. I'm not in the mood today, but there will be a battle between us sooner or later. Heart Demon snorted coldly. He took the broken peak-level Dominator Divine weapon, opened a space-time tunnel, and left. Lu Jiajin looked at the 3 and said, I apologize for what happened today, and also thank you. Otherwise, we would have been used by Dong Qingyuan. No need. We did it for ourselves. Otherwise, the world would have thought that we killed your family. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and smiled. Of course, he said this on purpose for the people below to hear. We'll meet again. Lu Jiajing cupped his hands and entered the space-time tunnel. Soon, he disappeared without a trace. End of chapter. Chapter 4301. The madman was secretly unhappy. The inner demons really don't know what's polite, directly taking the peak sovereign weapon. He was the one who killed Dong Qingyuan. If I don't give it to him, should I give it to you? The white-eyed wolf looked down on him. Do I look like such a greedy person? You're a hypocrite. You speak so righteously, but in your heart you can't wait to snatch it. The madman secretly laughed. You even know this? Are you a worm in my stomach? The white-eyed wolf looked at him jokingly. Scram! The madman's face was dark. Don't be so disgusting, okay? Enough. But with this peak sovereign weapon in our hands, we're the ones who benefit. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and smiled. That's true. But if this sovereign weapon is in the hands of the inner demons, what if the emperor asks him to hand it over when he returns to the central dynasty? The madman frowned. Wouldn't that be a waste of effort? Qin Feiyong laughed. Do you think with the inner demon's personality, he will still hand it over when it's in his hands? The madman was stunned. Suddenly he laughed out loud. Indeed, with the inner demon's temper, not to mention the emperor, even if the sovereign of the divine kingdom appeared, he might not necessarily hand it over. What are they laughing about? The people in the city below looked at the three people in the sky suspiciously. Do you still need to think? There's no doubt that they are the biggest winners in this game. If it were me, I would also laugh. Yes. How terrifying. It feels like no matter what, nothing can stop them. Everyone murmured. Qin Feiyong looked down at the city below and laughed. Although I'm from the sky cloud realm, to be honest, the central dynasty's attitude towards the three races is not pleasing to the eye even for an outsider like me. So in the future, if you want to resist the central dynasty's rule, feel free to come to me. What's in it for us? Will you be kind enough to help us? Someone asked. Qin Feiyong laughed. He was afraid that no one would ask, because if no one asked, it meant that there was no chance. Of course, as long as you renounce the darkness and join the light. To show my sincerity, I'll give you a good fortune now. Qin Feiyong smiled. What good fortune? Everyone was bewildered. White-eyed wolf and madman also looked at Qin Feiyong in confusion. What was going on this time? A moment passed. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and ultimate law's inheritances appeared out of thin air. After waiting for so long, he wasn't purposely keeping everyone in suspense. Instead, he was waiting for Fire Lotus to prepare. This was because all the nomological legacies were in the hands of the Fire Lotus. The people in the city were in an uproar. There were at least 10,000 ultimate profound inheritances. The mad scientist and the white-eyed wolf were stunned. These ultimate profound legacies were only ordinary laws. However, even if they were ordinary laws, there were 10,000 of them. It was still a huge treasure. Old Qin, this guy, must be crazy, taking out so many legacies to give to these irrelevant people? Over the years, we've come to Clear Sky City many times and caused a lot of trouble for everyone. So, take this as a little compensation for everyone. Qin Feiyong smiled. With a wave of his hand, the 10,000 ultimate profound legacies turned into streams of light and flew to every corner of Clear Sky City. Quick! That's mine. Don't snatch it. The people in the city went crazy and scrambled to snatch it. Ordinary ultimate law's inheritances weren't worth much to people like Qin Feiyong, but to ordinary people, they were priceless. You can snatch it, but you can't kill anyone. Otherwise, I'll take it all back. Qin Feiyong spoke, and his gentle voice entered everyone's ears. Some people had already started fighting. But when they heard this, they quickly stopped. White-Eyed Wolf raised his hand and touched Qin Feiyang's forehead. He turned to Madman and said suspiciously, "This guy doesn't have a fever." "Really?" Madman didn't believe it and also raised his hand to touch Qin Feiyang's forehead. He really didn't have a fever. But why would he do such a crazy thing? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and said speechlessly, "Back then we robbed the sea race and beast race of their ultimate profound legacies and obtained more than 700,000 ordinary ultimate laws inheritances. What's the big deal about giving them 10,000? But the two frowned. "I know you feel distressed. Instead of giving it to them, it's better to give it to the people of the Black Tortoise World and Sky Cloud World. But have you thought about what benefits these 10,000 legacies can bring us?" Qin Feiyang smiled. "Benefits?" White-Eyed Wolf was stunned and said suspiciously, "Are you trying to buy people's hearts?" "Yes, although the monarch and the others have already formed an alliance with us. The people below must be very resistant to us. So I suddenly thought of this idea to give them some benefits. This way, they will feel that we are still very good in their hearts." Qin Feiyang laughed secretly. "So that's how it is." Madman and Madman nodded and said disdainfully, "You are indeed a sly old fox." "Do you know how to speak?" Qin Feiyang stared at the two. This was to prepare to overthrow the Central Dynasty. How is he a sly old fox? Suddenly, White-Eyed Wolf scanned the void and said suspiciously, "Where are Dong Tianqin, Dong Ping, and Dong Xian?" Qin Feiyang and Madman were stunned. They couldn't help but look up and scan the void, but they really didn't see any figures of the three. "They sneaked away when we weren't paying attention?" White-Eyed Wolf frowned. "I guess so. They are afraid that we will attack them." Madman nodded. "If we attack them now, do we still need to spend so much effort?" White-Eyed Wolf sneered, looked at Qin Feiyang, and asked, "Do you want to kill them?" Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and waved his hand. "Let's keep them for now. Anyway, they can't do anything now. Moreover, Dong Ping and Dong Xian are controlled by the soul controlling technique. When the time comes, we might be able to give the Central Dynasty a surprise. As for Dong Laifu, now he has no value. Dong Laifu, self-destruct." Even in the face of such an order, Dong Laifu didn't hesitate or resist. His divine soul flew out from the top of his head and immediately shattered in the void. His corpse also immediately fell down to the city below. From the beginning, Qin Feiyang didn't intend to let Dong Laifu go, because all the plans against them were basically thought of by Dong Laifu. Dong Qingyuan nodded in agreement. From this, it could be seen how ruthless Dong Laifu was. Such a person would definitely not be left alive. Below, after a few hundred breaths of crazily snatching, the 10,000 ultimate inheritances were finally snatched. Someone snatched one. Someone snatched 2 inheritances. A few lucky people even snatched 3 or 4 inheritances. This made them extremely excited, because this was the inheritance of the ultimate profound, not the epitome of the laws. This was equivalent to a gift from the heavens, a great fortune. Those who didn't snatch it were disappointed. "Brother Qin, can you give us some more?" Someone looked up at the sky unwillingly. Even the way they addressed him had changed. But in the sky, the figures of Qin Feiyang and the other 2 could no longer be found. The 3 of them had already left at some point. Thousand Phoenix Mountain. On a mountain peak, 2 black figures stood silently at the edge of the cliff. They glanced at the vast mountains and rivers in front of them with smiles on their faces. It was the inner demons and Lu Jiejin. Buzz. After a while, a time passage appeared. The inner demons and Lu Jiejin looked up and saw 3 young men walking out. Who else could it be but Qin Feiyang and the other 2? "Here." Lu Jiejin waved his hand. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 looked down with a smile on their faces and landed on the mountain peak. The white-eyed wolf immediately went up to the inner demons and said with a smile, "Little devil, let me take a look at that peak-level sovereign divine weapon." Qin Feiyang and the madman looked at each other and smiled helplessly. As expected, this guy had always been thinking about this divine weapon. "What are you looking at?" "There's nothing to look at." The inner demons glanced at him and directly refused. How could he not know the white-eyed wolf's character? Once he took it out, he could forget about taking it back. "Damn, are you guarding against thieves?" "We are brothers," the white-eyed wolf said angrily. "Yes, I'm guarding against thieves. Guarding against thieves like you." The inner demons nodded. He didn't give him any face at all. The white-eyed wolf was so angry that his teeth itched. "Wait." Qin Feiyang suddenly thought of something and hurriedly asked, "Where did you put this divine weapon? We can't let it know about our relationship yet." After all, it was a peak-level sovereign divine weapon. If it suddenly betrayed them, wouldn't they be in trouble? "Don't worry. We've already thought of this. We've already forced it to make a blood oath that it will forever be loyal to us, and now it's sealed in my space divine item," the inner demons said. "That's good." Qin Feiyang heaved a sigh of relief. "No, didn't you say that your space divine item was confiscated by the Central Dynasty before you left?" The white-eyed wolf was suspicious. "Idiot." The inner demons rolled his eyes. "Why are you suddenly scolding me? Is it because I haven't taught you a lesson in a long time and you're itching for a beating?" The white-eyed wolf said angrily, "Yo, I'm itching for a beating. What can you do about it?" The inner demons yelled and looked at the white-eyed wolf provocatively. "If you're itching for a beating, I'll beat you up." The white-eyed wolf's gaze was unfriendly. "Come on, don't be polite. I'm right here. Come and beat me up." The inner demons bared his teeth and hooked his finger. Seeing this scene, Qin Feiyang and Lu Jiajin looked at each other with smiles on their faces. This was the way they were familiar with each other. "Brother Wolf, you can't blame the inner demons for calling you an idiot. Think about it. With his and Lu Jiajin's strength, is it difficult to find another space divine item in the 4 great continents?" The madman looked at the white-eyed wolf mockingly. The white-eyed wolf's expression stiffened, and he said angrily, "Do I need you to say that? I don't know. I'm just fooling around with him and nurturing the brotherly relationship that we've lost for many years. You really don't have any foresight at all." The madman's mouth twitched. He could even come up with such a lame excuse. He was indeed a genius. Buzz. At this moment, 3 space-time passages appeared one after another. The person who came was the monarch, the divine king, the sovereign of the human race. And beside the monarch, there was another person. This person was Ji Yunhai. Ji Yunhai? Looking at Ji Yunhai, whether it was Qin Feiyang's group of 3 or the inner demons, they couldn't help but frown. At the same time, Ji Yunhai looked at Qin Feiyang's group, and his heart was very nervous, because after forming the alliance, this was the first time he came into direct contact with Qin Feiyang's group. Moreover, recalling the slaughter he had committed in the Sky Cloud Boundary and the Nether King's Hell, his heart was beating like a drum. After all, these past events couldn't be erased. "Why did you bring him here?" The madman looked at the divine king, his expression full of displeasure. Although Ji Yunhai had passed the monarch's test, he was still very resistant to this person. In the future, he will be the acting patriarch of the Purple Gold Divine Dragon Clan. I will definitely bring him here to meet you and have a chat. The monarch smiled faintly. In fact, he also knew that Qin Feiyang's group was very resistant to Ji Yunhai. It was also because of this that he brought Ji Yunhai with him, hoping to resolve the previous grudges. "There's nothing to talk about." The madman coldly snorted. Right now, he could restrain his killing intent and not make a move on Ji Yunhai. This was already his greatest limit. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf actually had an indifferent attitude towards Ji Yunhai, although Ji Yunhai also appeared when the Divine Kingdom invaded the sky cloud boundary. He didn't bring any actual harm to the sky cloud boundary. Moreover, it was Ji Yunhai who suffered a great loss every time. However, the madman couldn't do it, because the madman and Ji Yunhai already had a great hatred in their previous life. Chapter 4302. What's wrong, this is? A familiar voice rang out. A divine soul flew out from the king's body and transformed into a human figure. It was Heavenly Lord Ji. He looked at Madman and Ji Yunhai suspiciously. This was a divine soul that he split out in advance. Uncle, there are some things you don't know. We can forgive Ji Yunhai, but not little Madman. The white-eyed wolf sighed. Why? Not only Heavenly Lord Ji. The king, the divine king, and the human race's supremes were also puzzled. The white-eyed wolf looked at Madman and sighed deeply. You guys don't know, but little Madman is actually the reincarnation of the Blood Demon King. What? The four of them were stunned. They really didn't know about this matter, because in the past, Madman had always said that he had obtained the inheritance of the Blood Demon King, which was equivalent to being the Blood Demon King's disciple. But they didn't expect him to be the reincarnation of the Blood Demon King. No wonder Madman didn't like Ji Yunhai so much. Of course, the most shocked was Ji Yunhai. Back then, the Blood Demon King died in his hands. Think about it. How could Madman let go of his enemy in his previous life? So, if I don't kill you now, you should thank the gods. Don't hang around in front of me in the future. Otherwise, if I can't bear it one day, don't blame me for being ruthless. Madman snorted coldly. Ji Yunhai smiled embarrassedly. Indeed, with Madman's current strength, it was too easy to kill him. Although he had already inherited 3,000 incarnations, opened the door of potential, and obtained the ultimate inheritance, he hadn't successfully fused these inheritances. Without the will of the heavenly Tao, even if he had 3,000 incarnations, he might not be able to block Madman's all-evil sword. Moreover, if they really fell out, then as Madman's brothers, Qin Feiyang and the White-Eyed Wolf would definitely help. If Qin Feiyang and the White-Eyed Wolf also made a move, then even if he controlled the will of the heavenly Tao, he would only be waiting for death. All right. For these grudges, we can slowly resolve them in the future. The monarch waved his hand and smiled, breaking the heavy atmosphere. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, Now, I will hand your uncle over to you. You have to ensure his safety. Father, why are you joining in the commotion? What uncle? Isn't this messing up the seniority? Ji Tianjun looked at his old father speechlessly. Ha! The king laughed heartily and looked at the inner demons and Lu Jijin. He cupped his hands and said, Gentlemen, I'll leave the rest to you. We need to figure out the strength of the Death God army as soon as possible. Don't worry. We'll prepare to return to the Central Dynasty. Lu Jejin nodded. So fast? Qin Feiyang and the others frowned. Strike while the iron is hot. Lu Jiajin smiled. But you've offended Dong Qingyuan. Wouldn't it be dangerous for you to return to the Central Dynasty now? If Dong Qingyuan tries to harm you by then, we can do nothing in the 4 great continents. The Divine King was rather worried. Thank you for your concern, Senior. But Dong Qingyuan is no longer a threat. This time he made such a big mistake in the 4 great continents and caused the beings of the 4 great continents to resist the Central Dynasty. If the Emperor knows about this, he won't let him go easily. In short, he can't even protect himself now. How would he be in the mood to deal with us? Besides, it's not our fault that we killed him and took his divine weapon. He set us up first. Lu Jiajin smiled. That makes sense. The Divine King, the Human Lord, Ji Yunhai, and Ji Tianjun nodded. Suddenly, the White-Eyed Wolf rolled his eyes and asked, Cousin, why don't you try and see if you can take us to the Central Dynasty? Huh. Lu Jiajin looked at the White-Eyed Wolf in shock. Don't you have a space divine item now? As long as we hide in your space divine item, we can easily sneak into the central dynasty. The white-eyed wolf said. You're oversimplifying the problem. There are people guarding the entrance of the central dynasty. Even Dong Tianqin and the others have to go through their inspection before they can enter the central dynasty, let alone us. Lu Jiajin shook his head. So strict? The white-eyed wolf raised his eyebrows. Was there really no way to sneak into the central dynasty? You don't have to rush to the central dynasty. Before the main force of the central dynasty arrives, you should increase your strength quickly. Once the main force arrives, it will be a tough battle. Lu Jiajin looked serious. All right, then we'll go to the central dynasty in the future. The white-eyed wolf nodded. Lu Jiajin thought for a while and looked at Qin Feiyang and the others. Also, what do you plan to do with Dong Tianqin and the others? Whatever. The mad scientist and the white-eyed wolf shrugged. They could kill them or not. Keep them for now. They'll probably follow you back to the central dynasty this time. Keep an eye out for them when you're there. Qin Feiyang said. Okay. Lu Jiajin nodded. He looked at Qin Feiyang's group of 3 and the monarch's group with a smile on his face. When we return to the central dynasty, Heart Demon and I will try our best to delay the time, giving you enough time to cultivate. The main force of the central dynasty is already on the way. How are you going to delay them? Everyone was doubtful. Simple. When we meet them on the way, we'll just tell them to go back. Lu Jiajin smiled. The Divine King frowned. It's not that I doubt your ability. After all, they're big shots in the central dynasty. Can you make them go back? How will we know if we don't try? Anyway, we'll try our best. Take this opportunity to cultivate. Lu Jiajin smiled. Thank you. The Divine King cupped his hands. They really needed time now. If Lu Jiajin and the inner demons could really do it, it would be a great help to them. We're all on the same side. Don't be so polite. Lu Jiajin waved his hand and smiled. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf and said, "Live well. In the future, we have to go back together. None of us can be left behind." Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other. Then they looked at Lu Jiajin and the inner demons and said, "You too." Then let's go our separate ways. Lu Jiajin laughed and then opened a space-time passage and left. The white-eyed wolf hurriedly looked at the inner demons and said, "Little demon, let's talk again." "Do you think I want to talk to you?" The inner demons rolled his eyes and followed Lu Jiajin into the space-time passage without looking back. "I've never seen such a petty person." The white-eyed wolf grumbled. The king looked at the white-eyed wolf curiously and asked, "What do you want to talk to him about?" "What else?" "He's thinking about Dong Qingyuan's pinnacle dominator divine weapon." The madman pursed his lips. Heard about it. The king and the others couldn't help but laugh. The human race supreme being looked at the space-time passage that disappeared, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, "Speaking of which, you, the inner demons, and your big cousin are both amazing people." His words were full of praise. For the sake of the big picture and the common people, they entered the central dynasty alone. This courage and boldness was unparalleled. Yes, Qin Feiyang nodded. Whether it was the inner demons or his big cousin, they were all his pride. He was proud of them. Phew! The king took a deep breath and said with a smile, "With Dong Qingyuan's self-destruction, this matter has temporarily come to an end. Everyone, quickly go back and cultivate in seclusion." "Okay." The Divine King and the human race supreme being nodded. Ji Yunhai suddenly said, "However, there are some things that we can't stop." "What is it?" The king looked at him suspiciously. Although now the creatures of the 4 continents are already resentful of the central dynasty, if we just let it go like this, it might be slowly forgotten by the world after a long time. So we have to add fuel to the fire from time to time, so that the dissatisfaction of the people towards the central dynasty will not decrease, but increase. Ji Yunhai said. Hearing this, the king and the others couldn't help but nod in praise. Ji Yunhai was indeed a bit smart to be able to think of such small details. Ji Yunhai pondered for a while and said, Actually, we can strike while the iron is hot and persuade the venerables of our 3 races first. Persuade them? The king, the divine king, and the human race supreme being were stunned. That's right. Ji Yunhai nodded and said with a smile, The venerables of the 3 races are all people of virtue and prestige. As long as we can persuade them, it will be much easier for us to rise in revolt in the future with their help. Speaking of this, Ji Yunhai looked at the divine king and the human race supreme being and said, And with their help, the 2 of you don't have to do everything by yourself. That makes sense. The divine king's eyes lit up, looked at the king, and said unhappily, In the past you had Heavenly Lord Ji to help you, and now you have Ji Yunhai to help you, and the venerables and I have always been doing things by ourselves. It's really a bit tiring. That can't be helped. Who asked you to not have a trustworthy person by your side? The king laughed proudly. Hearing this, the divine king and the human race supreme being couldn't help but roll their eyes. Ji Yunhai shook his head and smiled. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, I can go make arrangements for that. However, when the time comes, I will still need you to show yourself. Only by showing yourself will it be convincing enough. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. Ji Yunhai took out the divine sound transmission stone. The meaning was obvious. Qin Feiyang smiled and also took out the divine sound transmission stone. The 2 of them established a contract bridge with each other. Then, Ji Yunhai looked at the white-eyed wolf and the madman. The white-eyed wolf scratched his head and nodded. Okay, just take it as giving face to the king and uncle. Then he took out the divine sound transmission stone, but the madman directly ignored it. Ji Yunhai smiled bitterly and didn't force it. After establishing the contract bridge with the white-eyed wolf, he put away the divine sound transmission stone because something still needed a process. Then that's it for now. Heavenly Lord, I fulfilled your wish and let you go to the Black Tortoise world, but you better not be lazy in the Black Tortoise world. The king stared at Heavenly Lord Ji and said, Father, I'm your son. Don't you know my character? Heavenly Lord Ji was helpless. It's because you're my son that you should work hard. The king said, Yes, yes, yes. I'll definitely work hard. Heavenly Lord Ji nodded repeatedly. He was already so old, but the king still treated him like a child. Chapter 43:03. Second brother, let's go then. The king looked at Ji Yunhai and smiled. Ji Yunhai nodded. Before leaving, he looked at the madman and let out a sigh. If he knew this would happen, why did he do it in the first place? However, who would have thought that one day the 3 races would fight side by side with the Sky Cloud realm? If one had to give a conclusion, then it could only be said that it was an ill-fated relationship. The divine king and the human race's supreme being also didn't stay and opened a space-time tunnel to leave. After sending these people away, Ji Yunhai let out a long sigh. Uncle, what's with your expression? Why do you feel a little liberated? The white-eyed wolf looked at Ji Yunhai with ridicule. For me, this is liberating. I can finally breathe fresh air and see a different world. Heavenly Lord Ji chuckled. Is it that tiring? Others would be eager to sit in your position. You are a typical example of not knowing how lucky you are. The white-eyed wolf despised him. Lucky? Ji Yunhai was slightly taken aback and shook his head with a smile. It's my personal opinion. This was the truth. Some people like power and the limelight. However, some people like to live a life without worries and just go with the flow. Ji Yunhai was obviously the latter. The white-eyed wolf rolled his eyes and laughed. Since we helped you get rid of it, Shouldn't you thank us? What do you want? Ji Yun-hai immediately stared at the white-eyed wolf with vigilance. What's with your attitude? Without us, would the king have let you go? The white-eyed wolf was dissatisfied. Come on. You have the law inheritance, the spirit vein, and the crystal vein. What else do you want? Also, don't call me uncle anymore. According to seniority, you should call me ancestor, understand? Ji Yun-hai's face darkened. It was really easy to call him uncle all day. Okay. You are the elder. You have the final say. Ancestor, how are you going to thank us? The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. Ji Yun-hai was speechless. Why can't you be a saint? Don't ask for anything in return. Besides, they were all a family. There was no need to talk about gratitude. Wasn't that treating him as an outsider? Petty. The white-eyed wolf pouted. The corner of Heavenly Lord Ji's mouth twitched as he said angrily, I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you. You shouldn't have wasted your breath on him. Argue with him. He can talk to you endlessly for 10 days to half a month. Madman looked at the white-eyed wolf with disdain. Scram. I'm just being reasonable, okay? Who's talking nonsense? The white-eyed wolf was displeased. To hell with your great principles. Madman sneered. Heavenly Lord Ji shook his head and chuckled. These brats were indeed a little fun. He hesitated for a moment and looked at Frenzy with a smile. Little Frenzy, you. Uncle, stop for a moment. I know what you want to say. However, this is a grudge between me and Ji Yun-hai. Please do not interfere. But don't worry. I won't act recklessly in the face of the big picture. Madman waved his hand. All right. Heavenly Lord Ji nodded helplessly. If he really wanted to talk about this matter, the fault lay with his father, the monarch. Because back then, Ji Yun-hai was also ordered by the monarch to go to the Sky Cloud realm. If he were to investigate further, this fault would be placed on the central dynasty and the divine kingdom's ruler because his father, the monarch, was also acting under orders. However, no matter whose order it was, Madman did indeed die in the hands of Ji Yun-hai in his previous life. And the Nether King's hell was indeed plunged into misery and suffering because of Ji Yun-hai's arrival. It was normal for Madman to not be able to get over this hurdle in his heart. We'll talk about these things later. Let's go to the Black Tortoise realm first. Qin Feiyong smiled slightly. With a wave of his hand, a group of 4 immediately appeared in the Black Tortoise realm's tea garden. Every time he saw the tea trees in the tea garden, Heavenly Lord Ji couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. To be able to get so many divine tea trees from 9th Master Ji, there was probably only this Qin Feiyong in the world today. Seriously, it seems that I haven't visited those old men for a long time. Qin Feiyong laughed. Didn't you go there when you killed Dong Hanzong? Madman was suspicious. How can it be the same? Visiting them means to visit them without any other factors or motives. Qin Feiyong shook his head, pondered for a moment, and smiled. Anyway, aren't we going to cultivate in seclusion? Why don't we go to the village and accompany them? Accompany them? A trace of disdain crawled up in the white-eyed wolf's eyes and said, You want to go to 9th Master Ji's tea garden, right? Don't talk nonsense. Qin Feiyong's face darkened and said angrily, Am I such a greedy person? You definitely won't be greedy for other things, but for the divine tea tree. Everyone knows. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. Qin Feiyong laughed dryly, looked at Heavenly Lord Ji, and said, Uncle, how about I take you to reconstruct your divine soul and body first? Okay. Heavenly Lord Ji nodded. He had long wanted to see the power of the Eye of Life. As for calling him uncle, he didn't have the energy to complain, as long as he didn't call him Big Brother. If he called him Big Brother, it would completely mess up the seniority. The white-eyed wolf suddenly said, By the way, Uncle, does your son know that you faked your death? He doesn't know. Heavenly Lord Ji shook his head and sighed. How would I dare to tell him such a thing? That's true. If you tell a brainless person like him, he might tell others in the blink of an eye. The white-eyed wolf nodded. Hey, 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 can't you give me some face? He's my son after all. Heavenly Lord G said angrily. Ha, it's the truth. The white-eyed wolf smiled. Heavenly Lord G's veins were bulging. Who were these people? Then when you self-destructed in Qingtian City, does he hate us very much? The white-eyed wolf asked again, although Heavenly Lord G was forced to self-destruct by the inner demons. This matter was also related to them, because they were the ones who exposed everything. Of course, if he doesn't hate you, I'll teach him a lesson. Because this proves that he's an unfilial white-eyed wolf. Heavenly Lord G said. That's interesting. If he sees us in the future, he'll definitely fight us to the death. The white-eyed wolf's eyes were full of evil smiles. What do you want? Let me tell you, I only have one son, and I'm still waiting for him to carry on the family line. Heavenly Lord G glared at the white-eyed wolf. The white-eyed wolf waved his hand and said, It's okay, if you don't mind, you can also take little lunatic as your godson, and he'll help you carry on the family line. Me, help him carry on the family line. Lunatic pointed at his own nose and looked at the white-eyed wolf with a stunned face. That's right. If you really become Uncle's son, then you can openly take advantage of little Qinzi in the future. At that time, if he doesn't obediently call you ancestor, I think even the king won't let him off. The white-eyed wolf nodded. Qin Feiyang's mouth kept twitching. So did Heavenly Lord G and Lunatic. Their foreheads were full of black lines. What the hell is this? No, this damn wolf cub, he's not a good person at all. After Heavenly Lord G's divine soul and body were reconstructed, Qin Feiyang personally brought Heavenly Lord G to an uninhabited courtyard. Although no one lived in it, Pai Lupi and Theta Wang helped to take care of it, so the courtyard was very clean. This was where Heavenly Lord G would live in the future. After settling down, Qin Feiyang also said that Heavenly Lord G could go anywhere in the Black Tortoise world as long as he was willing. After chatting for a while, Qin Feiyang and the other two left the Black Tortoise world. The village. It was still quiet and peaceful. In the sky above the mountains, Qin Feiyang and the other two walked side by side. Now that they came to the village, it was like coming home. There was no unfamiliar aura at all. Qin Feiyang looked at the village from afar and said with a smile, We came here to show our filial piety, right? Yes. The two nodded. Since it's filial piety, shouldn't we prepare some gifts? Qin Feiyang glanced at the white-eyed wolf. What do you want? I'm telling you, don't have any ideas about me. The white-eyed wolf flashed behind Lunatic and guarded against Qin Feiyang like he was guarding against a thief. Don't use me as a shield. Lunatic took a step away and glared at the white-eyed wolf. You have no loyalty. The white-eyed wolf grumbled. Stop talking nonsense. Qin Feiyang glared at him and asked, When Dong Qingyuan and Dong Laifu visited us at Blue Sun Mountain, what was the gift they gave you? What does it have to do with you? The white-eyed wolf immediately covered the interspatial ring, fearing that Qin Feiyang would snatch it. Do you think we won't know if you don't tell us? What else can make you care so much except for the divine brew? Lunatic said with disdain. Ha! Seeing that Lunatic had exposed him, the white-eyed wolf laughed dryly. Take out all the divine brews. Qin Feiyang stretched out his hand. Why? The white-eyed wolf frowned. Of course. Give them to the old master and the others. Qin Feiyang was speechless. How could he not understand this? Was he stupid? It wasn't that the white-eyed wolf didn't understand, but he was playing dumb. For him, asking for these divine brews was asking for his life. Why should I? Besides, why must we give them the divine brews? Doesn't Lord Jiu like drinking tea? You can give him some tea leaves." The white-eyed wolf kept shaking his head, saying that he didn't want to give it to him. Qin Feiyang said angrily, "My tea leaves are all from him. Won't you be laughed at if you ask me to give these tea leaves? I won't give it to him anyway." The white-eyed wolf turned his head and looked away. Qin Feiyang and Lunatic looked at each other and shook their heads helplessly. The white-eyed wolf cared about wine almost as much as Lord Jiu cared about tea. While talking, the three of them landed at the entrance of the village. At this time the sky was still dark. There were no candles in the village, and it was very quiet. I really envy them. Such a big thing happened in Qingtian City, but they still sleep when they should and get up when they should. They don't care about the outside world and live a carefree life. Lunatic shook his head. One day in the future, we can also live such a life. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. I hope so. Lunatic sighed and looked at the river next to him, then looked outside Boss G's house and said with a smile, "Let's not wake them up first. Let's wait for them to wake up naturally." I saw a few fishing rods outside Grandpa's house. Why don't we play night fishing? Grandpa was naturally referring to Boss G. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. It had been a long time since he calmed down and sat by the river to fish. Fishing was also a kind of cultivation, the cultivation of the mind. Chapter 4304. The frenzied man and the white-eyed wolf were both excited at first. However, when they sat by the river and looked at the bobber that didn't move for a long time, they quickly lost interest. The two of them lay on the grass with their hands behind their heads and looked up at the starry sky. The frenzied man smiled and asked, "Old Qin, Brother Wolf, if I die in the divine kingdom one day, will you still think of me as your brother?" "Who will think of you? You're not a beauty." The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. "Heartless." The frenzied man pouted. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. Looking at the motionless bobber on the river, he smiled and said, "Don't say such unlucky things. Before Big Cousin left, he said that we have to go back alive and not a single one of us can be left behind." "Not a single one of us can be left behind," the frenzied man muttered and chuckled. "Brother Wolf, did you hear that? Don't fall behind." As he spoke, there was a hint of sleepiness in his voice. "I'm talking about you. You're so arrogant and offended so many people. If you're not careful, you'll lose your life." The white-eyed wolf grinned. "My life? Shouldn't it be my life? You make it sound like I'm already an old antique." As his body and mind relaxed, the frenzied man became more and more sleepy. "Do you think you're still young?" "Sigh. Although I don't want to admit it, we're not young anymore. The people of Great Qin probably think of us as old ancestors now." The white-eyed wolf sighed. Time passed so quickly. Thinking back to the time when he met Qin Feiyang and the frenzied man, it felt like it had just happened yesterday. After waiting for a while and seeing that the frenzied man didn't reply, the white-eyed wolf turned his head and found that the frenzied man had already fallen asleep with a faint smile on his face. He looked very relaxed and peaceful. The white-eyed wolf also smiled and looked up at the boundless starry sky before slowly closing his eyes. "Why aren't you talking?" After a long time, Qin Feiyang suspiciously turned his head to look at the two of them. Seeing that both of them had fallen asleep, he couldn't help but be surprised. Didn't they say they were going to fish at night? Why are they all asleep? He shook his head and got up. He took out 2 sets of clothes from his universe ring and covered them with them. Subsequently, Qin Feiyang also sat at the side and looked at the quiet night sky with a smile on his face. Although he had left his hometown since he was a child and suffered a lot, he had never been lonely. That was because there was always someone accompanying him. In a person's life, it was enough to have 2 brothers who were willing to live and die with you. The sky gradually brightened. Early in the morning, the sun shone down, and all living things came back to life. Boss G was the first to walk out of the house with a teacup in his hand. He looked refreshed. He walked to the entrance of the village and prepared to sit in an armchair to enjoy the tranquility of the morning. But suddenly, he noticed Qin Feiyong and the other two on the riverbank. Why are these three little fellows here? Moreover, they had all fallen asleep by the river? That's right. Qin Feiyong had also fallen asleep. After returning to the village, he felt unprecedentedly relaxed. Unknowingly, he had put down all his burdens and then slowly fell asleep. In fact, this was the sense of belonging and security of home. Ji Lauer and the others also walked out of the house one after another and walked to Boss Ji. When they saw Qin Feiyong and the other two lying by the river, they couldn't help but be stunned. Why are they sleeping by the river? Hurry up and wake them up. If they want to sleep, they should go to bed. After Ji Lauscher finished speaking, he walked towards the three of them. Lauscher, Master Jiu stopped him. What's wrong? Ji Lauscher stopped and turned to look at him suspiciously. Master Jiu shook his head and said, It's not easy for them to sleep. Don't wake them up. But Ji Lauscher frowned. They are already at such a cultivation level. Are you still afraid that they will catch a cold? Let them have a good rest. These years have been really tiring. Master Jiu smiled slightly and looked at Qin Feiyong and the other two with eyes full of love. All right, Ji Lauscher nodded. Indeed, these years, these little guys had been running around in the Divine Kingdom and had to face such a strong enemy like the Central Dynasty. If it were other young people, they would have collapsed long ago. And these three little guys had been strong until now. It wasn't easy. Moreover, with the heavy burden and responsibility on their shoulders. Once they were woken up, it was impossible for them to fall asleep again. Master Jiu smiled and said, But speaking of which, they can sleep so peacefully here. Do you know what this means? It means that they are tired, Ji Lauscher said without hesitation. You're wrong. Master Jiu shook his head. Wrong? Ji Lauscher was stunned and puzzled. Wrong. It's impossible to sleep so soundly alone outside no matter how tired they are. Master Jiu smiled. That's true. Ji Lauscher nodded. So, they treat this place as their home. Only the sense of belonging and security of home can make them put down everything and have a good sleep. Look at them now. We're talking loudly, but they haven't woken up. This means that they are very relieved to be here. Master Jiu smiled. Hearing this, a group of old people inadvertently showed a smile on their faces. If they treated this place as their home, then these old people were naturally their family. Old woman, let's have more lunch today. Ji Lauer turned his head to look at the second young mistress and smiled. Keep your voice down. Don't wake them up. The second young mistress glared at the old man who had no sense of propriety. Yes. Ji Lauer nodded repeatedly. Time passed little by little. At noon, smoke curled up above the village. The aroma of food soon drifted out. By the river, Qin Feiyong's nose twitched, and his eyelids slowly opened. Looking at the scorching sun in the sky, he muttered in a daze, Why did I fall asleep too? It smells so good. He rubbed his eyes and sat up. He turned his head and saw a group of old people sitting at the entrance of the village, playing chess together. He looked at the room where the second young mistress was. The aroma of food drifted out from that room. You're so considerate. A smile appeared on Qin Feiyong's face. These old people must have gotten up long ago. They didn't wake them up, obviously, because they wanted him, the lunatic and the white-eyed wolf, to have a good sleep. This was an invisible kind of care. This kind of care was the most touching. Wake up! Qin Feiyong withdrew his gaze and reached out to push the lunatic and the white-eyed wolf. The two of them woke up one after another and raised their hands to stretch. This sleep was really comfortable. You're all awake. Ji Lauer turned his head to look at the three of them. Yes. The three of them nodded and walked to the river to wash up. Then they looked at the fishing rod and couldn't help but smile bitterly. They came to fish at night in high spirits, but they all fell asleep on the ground. Then the three of them put away the fishing rod. The bait was still there, which meant that the fish in the water had not been touched at all. Great-grandfather, do you have fish in the river? The lunatic put the fishing rod on his shoulder and ran towards the group of old people while asking, "Fishing like this, it's good enough that the fishing rod is not taken away." Boss G rolled his eyes at him. Then Qin Feiyong waved his hand and said, "Brat, hurry over and help me. This bastard old Gio has been bullying me because of his superior chess skills. Help me take care of him." "Big brother, don't be like this. How can I find help?" Ji Gio said unhappily. "Scared?" Boss G chuckled. "What am I scared of? This is a dead game now. I don't believe that this kid can come back from the dead." Ji Gio snorted. Qin Feiyong and the other two walked over. "Come here." Boss G waved at Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong handed the fishing rod to the white-eyed wolf and walked to Boss G's side. Ji Gio looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "Kid, if you can break this dead game, I will worship you as my master." "I don't dare." Qin Feiyong quickly waved his hand and looked at the chessboard carefully for a moment. He picked up a chess piece and put it on the chessboard with a smile on his face. "Is it solved just like that?" The group of old people quickly looked at the chessboard. After observing carefully for a while, Boss G's eyes suddenly lit up, and then he couldn't help but laugh. On the other hand, Ji Gio's face was extremely ugly. It was originally a dead game, but with Qin Feiyong's move, not only did it help Boss G revive the game, but it also turned Ji Gio's side into a dead game. "Kid, you're good." Ji Gio patted Qin Feiyong's shoulder and looked at Ji Gio with a smile. "Brother Gio, who told you to show off in front of us all day long? Now you've met your match." Ji Gio glared at Ji Gio, then looked up at Qin Feiyong and said, "What's this move called?" "Desperate counterattack." Qin Feiyong smiled. "What a desperate counterattack!" Ji Gio smiled bitterly. "Didn't you want to worship me as your master?" "Hurry up! I've already prepared tea for you." Madman chuckled. Ji Gio's face darkened and he quickly changed the topic. He coughed and said, "Well, did you sleep well?" Madman looked at him with disdain and said, "I slept too well." Boss G asked, "Then this time are you going to stay a little longer, or—" "That depends on your attitude. If you want us to leave now, we'll leave now. If you want us to stay a little longer, we'll stay a little longer." Madman chuckled. "Then get out of here now," Ji Gio said with a dark face. "I'm so sad." Madman immediately wiped his tears. "Wipe, wipe, wipe. Leave a drop of tear for me to see." Ji Gio rolled his eyes. "Ha!" Madman laughed dryly. "You're all awake." At this time, second young mistress walked out of the house. Qin Feiyong and the other two nodded. "When did you come last night? Why didn't you wake us and sleep by the river? What if you catch a cold?" Second young mistress said reproachfully, but her words were full of concern. Although they all knew that it was impossible for people with their cultivation base to catch a cold, they didn't say it out loud, because this was her concern for the three of them. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, "We came last night in the middle of the night. Seeing that you were all resting, we didn't disturb you. You're treating us as outsiders. This is your home. You can come whenever you want." Second young mistress said, "Thank you, great-grandmother." Qin Feiyong and the other two were touched. "Okay, it's time to eat. You guys clean up." After saying that, second young mistress turned around and went back into the house. Chapter 43:05. Time to eat, time to eat. "Everyone, help me clean up." Boss G chuckled. Qin Feiyong and the other two quickly went forward to clean up the chessboard and chess pieces on the table. Seeing the three of them scrambling to do the work, the group of old men was pleased. If it was any other young man with the strength and status of the three of them, these old men wouldn't even put them in their eyes. But in the eyes of Qin Feiyang and the other two, they only saw respect and filial piety. "You are guests. How can we let you do it?" "Let us do it," Ji Laosher mocked. "Guests? Great-grandfather, if you say so, then we will leave now. We came back specifically to show our filial piety." Frenzy said. "Huh. Came back specifically to show our filial piety." The group of old men looked at each other and looked at the three of them, who were busy with their heads lowered. Their eyes were a little wet. "What's wrong?" Qin Feiyang looked at the group of people suspiciously. "Nothing. Sen got into my eyes." Boss Ji waved his hand. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He could even find such a lame excuse. He sighed and said, "The three of us have no relatives or friends in the divine kingdom, let alone a sense of belonging. It was you who gave us the warmth of a family and allowed us to have someone to rely on in the divine kingdom. If we don't show our filial piety to you, who else can we show our filial piety to?" I can't say something as emotional as old Qin, but I am really grateful to you for supporting us so much, trusting us, and treating us like your own grandchildren. Frenzy looked up at the group of old men and said. Boss G and the others looked at each other and were very pleased. In today's world, there were very few young people like him who knew how to repay kindness. Take their descendants as an example. Even the monarch and Ji Yunhai rarely came to visit them. Needless to say, Ji Shaoi, Ryuko, and the other juniors, if you didn't call them over, they definitely wouldn't take the initiative to visit. Looking at the 3 kids in front of them, although they had met less than 10 times, they still cared about these old men in their hearts. Even now, they specially came to show their filial piety. Such a character was rare. Sit down. Boss Ji waved his hand. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 placed the chess pieces and the chessboard, and then sat around the table with the group of old people. Second young mistress and the others also came over with delicious dishes. You 3 silly children, we heard everything you said outside. What do you mean no relatives or friends? Aren't the people of the purple gold divine dragon clan your relatives? Second young mistress put down the dishes and looked at Qin Feiyang and the other 2 with a smile. That's right. You might not like the land of the purple gold divine dragons, but this place will always be your safe haven. Boss G nodded. Thank you, great-grandpas and great-grandmas. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 felt their hearts ache. There were still people in the divine kingdom who were genuinely good to them. Second young mistress waved her hand and said, Don't say so much. Hurry up and eat. You haven't even eaten breakfast. The dishes on the table were wild vegetables personally planted by a group of old people, as well as air-dried fish and meat. Although they were not as good as exotic delicacies, this was the taste of home. Qin Feiyang ate a piece of fish and turned to the white-eyed wolf. He asked, Didn't you prepare a gift for great-grandpa and great-grandma? Hurry up and take it out. Huh. The white-eyed wolf looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. Gift? What gift? Why didn't he know? You still have a gift? The group of old people laughed and looked at the white-eyed wolf. Yes, you even specially prepared a gift for great-grandpa and great-grandma. Frenzy looked at Qin Feiyang's eyes and understood. He chewed on a bone and said with a smirk. Seeing the smirk on their faces, the white-eyed wolf immediately understood. He glared at the 2 of them and reluctantly took out an interspatial ring. You really have one. The group of old people's faces bloomed with smiles. To be honest, as people of their age, they didn't want any gifts at all. They were satisfied as long as the juniors had the heart. It's a gift for you. The white-eyed wolf handed the interspatial ring to Boss G with a smile. Since he had already been tricked, he might as well give it to these old people with a smile rather than a sullen face. As long as these old people were happy, it was fine. Boss G took the interspatial ring and checked it. He was immediately full of smiles. What's this? G. Lauscher was curious. Boss G threw the interspatial ring to G. Lauscher. G. Lauscher checked it and was stunned. So much divine wine? There were at least dozens of varieties. It was not easy to collect dozens of varieties. They might have to go to all the restaurants in the 3 continents. From this, it could be seen that these children were indeed filial. Okay, since you've brought the wine, let's have a few drinks at noon. The group of old people didn't stand on ceremony and took out a few jars of divine wine. The white-eyed wolf's heart ached. He couldn't even bear to drink it himself. G. Lauscher poured the wine and asked, "What are you going to do next?" "What are you talking about, Lauscher? Have you seen any children come home to talk about business?" Boss G glared at G. Lauscher unhappily. G. Lauscher was dazed. He patted his head and smiled embarrassedly. "Well, yes. Let's not talk about these annoying things at home." Boss G looked at Qin Feiyang and the other 2 and smiled. "We don't care about what you do outside, but when you come back here, you have to let go of everything and have a good rest. Okay." The 3 nodded. They liked this feeling. A month passed in the blink of an eye. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 stayed in the village. During the day, they accompanied the group of old people and set up a time array to cultivate in seclusion at night. Everything seemed very peaceful. The group of old people was also very happy. They were all smiles all day. Outside, however, a storm was brewing. Under the influence of the monarch, the divine king, and the human sovereign, the people of the 3 major races were more and more dissatisfied with the central dynasty. In fact, the central dynasty was like a rat on the street that everyone wanted to beat up. At the same time, Forbidden Ocean, in the depths, above the ocean, a group of people came in a mighty manner. These people were men and women, old and young. They were all wearing the same black clothes. There was a sharp sword pattern embroidered on their chest. Each of them exuded an unfathomable aura, and it was filled with a murderous aura. The beasts along the way all fled at the sight of it. "We have entered the territory of the 4 great continents. We will leave the Forbidden Ocean in a month or so. Everyone must be prepared." The leader was a black-robed old man. He scanned the endless ocean and said without turning his head, "Yes, Commander." The people behind him replied respectfully. There were about 5,000 to 6,000 people. Their eyes were as sharp as blades. "Commander, there are people in front." Suddenly, a black-robed, middle-aged man pointed at the ocean in front. "People. Could it be that Qin Feiyang and the others know that we are going to the 4 great continents and are here to kill us?" Someone raised an eyebrow. The commander did not speak and looked at the ocean in front. Soon, 5 figures rushed over at high speed. It was the inner demons Lu Jiajin, Dong Tianchen, Dong Ping, and Dong Exan. "It's them," the commander muttered and quickly went to greet them. At the same time, the inner demons also saw this group of people. "Dong Tianchen, who are they?" The inner demons was suspicious. Dong Tianchen glanced at the group of people and suddenly noticed the sword pattern on their chest. He said in surprise, "They are from the Death God Army." Death God Army. The inner demons and Lu Jiajin looked at each other. They did not expect that they would send a Death God Army, and there were too many of them. There were about 6,000 of them. Although I have not been to the Death God Army's nest, I have seen the totem on their chest. Dong Tianchen said, "It is said that every member of the Death God Army has mastered the will of the heavenly Tao. 6,000 of them came at once. It is clear that the emperor values people like Qin Feiyang very much." Dong Ping said in a deep voice, "What should we do now? Should we continue to return to the central dynasty or follow them to the 4 great continents?" Dong Exan asked. This, Dong Tianchen and Dong Ping did not know what to do. They could not help but look at the inner demons and Lu Jejin. The inner demons and Lu Jejin's eyes flashed. They were originally planning to meet the people from the central dynasty halfway and find an excuse to let them go back. They did not expect that it would be the Death God army that came. These people would only listen to the emperor's orders. It would be difficult to let them go back. Why don't you say something? Dongping looked at the two of them. The inner demons said, I don't care what you do, big brother, and I must return to the central dynasty. Why? Dongping was suspicious. Kill Dong Qingyuan. Even if the emperor protects him, he must die. The inner demons laughed. His eyes were full of murderous intent. Dong Tianqin and the other two were shocked. It seemed that Dong Qingyuan's plot to kill the brother's family had completely angered them. I think you should follow us back to the central dynasty. Because of Dong Tianqin, you are bound by the blood oath. Dong Ping and Dong Xan are controlled by the soul-controlling technique. If you go back with the Death God army now, Qin Feiyang will not let you go. Lu Jejin's eyes flashed. The three of them heard this, and their hearts sank. That was right. They could not go back to the 4 great continents. Even if they wanted to go back, they had to break the blood oath and the soul-controlling technique first. Finally, the 2 groups met. Greetings, seniors. Dong Tianqin and the other 2 bowed to the Death God army. However, the inner demons and Lu Jejin only smiled coldly. The Death God army could not help but frown. They were indeed as arrogant as the rumors said. The inner demons did not know these people, but these people had heard about the deeds of the inner demons in the central dynasty. They could only be described with one word: lawless. I am the commander of the Death God army, Dong Yiming. The leader of the black-robed old men said, Senior Commander, sorry for the disrespect. Dong Tianqin smiled respectfully. Dong Yiming waved his hand and looked at the 5 of them suspiciously. He asked, Where are you going? Back to the central dynasty. Dong Tianqin said truthfully. Back to the central dynasty? Dong Yiming was stunned. The thousands of people behind him also had a trace of suspicion. Dong Yiming asked, Have you dealt with Qin Feiyang and the others? End of chapter. Chapter 4306. No. Dong Tianqin shook his head. If it's not settled, why are you going back? Dong Yiming frowned. What does it have to do with you? The inner demons raised an eyebrow and said angrily, Why do you have so much nonsense to say? Dong Yiming was furious when he saw the inner demon's attitude. Although you brothers are geniuses and strong, I'm still the commander of the Death God army. Moreover, I'm their senior. Shouldn't the younger generation show respect to their seniors? What about me? The inner demons sneered. How dare you? You have no respect for your seniors. Someone from the Death God army shouted. Seniors, please calm down. More than a month ago, Lu Yuntian and Lu Yunfeng's family members died tragically, so they're in a bad mood. Please forgive them. Dong Tianqin hurriedly explained. Family members? When the members of the Death God Legion heard this, they couldn't help but be stunned. They had always been curious about the identity and background of the inner demons. That's right, they're family members. Dong Tianqin nodded. It seems that the identity of these 2 has been investigated. Dong Yiming muttered in his heart. He looked at Dong Tianqin and asked, Who killed them? Qin Feiyang and the others? If they were really killed by Qin Feiyang and the others, they wouldn't have returned to the central dynasty. Dong Tianqin smiled bitterly. Then who killed them? How dare they touch the people of the central dynasty? Are they courting death? Dong Yiming said angrily. They're courting death indeed. The inner demons stared at Dong Yiming and laughed sinisterly. Why are you staring at me? Dong Yiming panicked when he saw the red eyes of the inner demons. The one who killed their family members. Dong Tianqin sighed deeply and looked at Dong Yiming. It's your leader, Dong Qingyuan. What? Dong Yiming shook his head and said, That's impossible. The rest of the Death God army was also in disbelief. Dong Qingyuan was the leader of the Death God army and the king's trusted aide. How could he do such a thing? It's a long story. Dong Tianqin sighed. What the hell is going on? Is there a misunderstanding? Someone asked. They had left for the 4 great continents before Dong Qingyuan had self-detonated. Therefore, even if Dong Qingyuan's soul was still in the Central Dynasty, he wouldn't know about this. There's nothing to explain. Dong Qingyuan must die. Not even the emperor can save him. The inner demons spoke. Dong Yiming and the others felt a chill in their hearts. So they were going back to the Central Dynasty to kill the leader. Wait, isn't the leader in the 4 great continents? Suddenly, Dong Yiming frowned. Why would Lu Yuntian and Lu Yunfeng go back to the Central Dynasty to kill him? It seems that you didn't know that Dong Qingyuan left his soul in the Central Dynasty either. The inner demons sneered. The group of people looked at each other. Their leader had left his divine soul behind in the Central Dynasty? How could the leader do something so shameful and undignified? You must be surprised. The dignified leader of the Death God army is actually a coward. The inner demons laughed disdainfully. Dong Yiming was furious. Although he didn't know what was going on, as a subordinate, he wouldn't allow anyone to humiliate his master like this. What about me? I'm not convinced. I think you guys are jackals of the same tribe as him because you were all trained by him. The inner demons glanced at the group of people, his eyes full of mockery. Although you've lost your family, don't go too far, someone said angrily. Too far. When Dong Qingyuan killed my family, didn't he think about whether he was going too far? The inner demon roared with an overbearing aura. I believe that the leader wouldn't kill your family for no reason. There must be a reason. Maybe there's something wrong with your family. Dong Yiming said in a deep voice. Say that again. The inner demons clenched his fists and stared at Dong Yiming like a beast. Dong Yiming felt a little guilty. The inner demon's aura was too strong, especially the invisible pressure that they exuded. Senior Commander, you've truly misunderstood Lu Yuntian. It's all Dong Qingyuan and Dong Laifu's fault. They're just innocent victims. Dong Tianqin sighed. Make it clear. Dong Yiming frowned. Lu Jiejin's eyes flashed. He looked at the group of people and said, Take your time. We'll leave first. Also, I advise you not to step into the 4 great continents for now. After that, the 2 of them brushed past Dong Yiming and left without looking back. Looking at the arrogant attitude of the 2 of them, the group of people of the Death God army burned with anger. Was this the attitude of a junior? Dong Yiming took a deep breath and looked at Dong Tianqin. Tell me the details. Dong Tianqin nodded and told him how Dong Qingyuan and Dong Laifu set up a trap to frame Qin Feiyang and the others, and how they used the inner demons and Lu Jiejin. The 6,000 people of the Death God army looked at Dong Tianqin with their mouths agape. They never thought this was the truth of the matter. If Dong Tianqin hadn't said it himself, they wouldn't have believed that Dong Qingyuan would do such a thing. Then what did Lu Yunfeng mean by that sentence? Dong Yiming asked. What did he say? Dong Tianqin was suspicious. He said that it's best that we don't step into the 4 great continents for now. Dong Yiming said. He said that for your own good. Because of Dong Qingyuan, the people of the 3 races hate the Central Dynasty to the core. Dong Qingyuan even said in public that the Central Dynasty has been using the 3 races as cannon fodder. Think about it. What would you think if you and I were in his shoes? Dong Tianqin sighed. He said something like that. He's crazy. Dong Yiming was shocked. I think he's crazy. He's too full of himself. Although the Central Dynasty is superior to the 4 great continents, He doesn't have to say that. Even the emperor wouldn't dare to say something like that, let alone him. Dong Ping harumphed. Foolish, foolish. Dong Yiming shook his head and sighed. In his impression, Dong Qingyuan was a person with a sense of propriety. Why did he become so unwise after coming to the 4 great continents? If the emperor heard about this, he wouldn't let Dong Qingyuan off easily. Now that the divine kingdom was invaded by Qin Feiyang and the others, what they needed the most was unity. Now that Dong Qingyuan had made such a scene, the divine kingdom had fallen apart. At that time, many people were angrily shouting that they wanted to rebel against the central dynasty. If you enter the 4 great continents now, you'll be cursed by the 3 races and even beaten up. Dong Tianqin said. Then what should we do? Do we really have to go back? Someone frowned. I'm afraid we'll have to report this to the emperor first. Also, Lu Yuntian and Lu Yunfeng will definitely settle the score with Dong Qingyuan when they return to the central dynasty. By then, the central dynasty will be in chaos because of them. Dong Tianqin was worried. Dong Yiming nodded and said, That's true. With such a deep hatred and their personalities, they won't let it go until they kill Dong Qingyuan. Anyway, this is our suggestion. It's up to you whether you want to go to the 4 great continents or not. Dong Tianqin said. He wasn't stalling for time for Qin Feiyang. He was stating a fact. In the current situation, if the people of the central dynasty set foot in the 4 great continents again, they would definitely become the target of the anger of billions of people in the 4 great continents. Although the Death God army was very strong and wasn't afraid of the people of the 4 great continents, they had to consider the consequences sometimes. The people of the 4 great continents were part of the divine kingdom. If they fell out completely and even rebelled, they wouldn't be able to bear the consequences when the emperor investigated. Commander, shall we go back first? Someone asked. Dong Yiming thought for a while, then turned to the people behind him and said, How about this? 10 of you stay here and the rest go back first. If Lu Yuntian and the others really make a scene, you can come out and stop them. After all, Lu Yuntian has the Demon King real body and the law of life and death. He can easily defeat 3,000 experts with the will of heaven. As for Lu Yunfeng, he also has the Eye of Void. If they really make a scene, the consequences will be unimaginable. The remaining 10 will follow me to the 4 great continents and secretly investigate the current situation of the 4 great continents so that we can be prepared. Dong Yiming was right. The inner demons had the Demon King real body and could summon 3,000 real bodies. His battle strength alone was equivalent to 3 people of the Death God army. Coupled with his law of life and death, it was a completely one-sided situation. So, even if the central dynasty had the ability to suppress the inner demons, they would still have to pay a heavy price. Then there was Lu Jiajin. The Eye of Void could make the ultimate profound meaning ineffective. Even the Death God army couldn't do anything about such a heaven-defying method. So, as long as something related to the inner demons happened, they had to be 120% alert and treat it seriously. This was the current status and deterrent force of the 2. No one dared to ignore them. Okay, then be careful. A middle-aged man in a black robe looked at Dong Yiming and warned. Don't worry, I won't show up. I'll just observe in the dark. Dong Yiming smiled. Okay, let's go. The middle-aged man in a black robe waved his hand. The large group immediately followed Dong Tianqin and the other 2 and headed toward the inner demons and Lu Jiajin. Lu Jiajin and the inner demons hadn't gone far. They turned around and looked behind. What is Dong Yiming doing with those 10 people? The inner demons frowned. Who cares, as long as the large group doesn't go to the 4 great continents. Lu Jiajin smiled faintly. Qin Feiyang could easily kill Dong Yiming and the other 11 people. The inner demons laughed secretly. Speaking of which, Dong Tianqin and the other 2 have helped us a lot. If these 6,000 people really went to the 4 great continents, it would be a problem for Qin Feiyang and the others. As expected, I didn't say much before because I wanted the 3 of them to say it for me. Because it would be more truthful if the 3 of them said it, and Dong Yiming and the others wouldn't be suspicious. After all, the 3 of them were the direct descendants of the Central Dynasty. In short, the words that Lu Jiajin said to Dong Yiming before he left were equivalent to a fuse. Whether it was Dong Yiming's question or the 3's answer, it was all within his calculations. End of chapter. Chapter 4307. A few days passed. In the morning, the sun was shining brightly. Qin Feiyang accompanied Boss Ji as they sat by the river and fished. Looking at the calm water surface, Qin Feiyang suddenly revealed a smile. "What are you smiling about?" Boss Ji asked with a smile. "The inner demons and big cousin have already entered the Central Dynasty." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "How do you know?" Boss Ji was surprised. In the past few days, Qin Feiyang had been under his eyelids the entire time and had never left. "Because I have a telepathic connection with the inner demons and can sense each other's presence. Just a while ago, the connection between us was suddenly cut off." "This means that he has already entered the Central Dynasty." Qin Feiyang smiled. "So that's the case." Boss Ji suddenly understood. The relationship between the inner demons and the original body was really strange. However, Qin Feiyang suddenly lowered his head and frowned. "What's wrong?" Boss Ji looked at him in confusion. Did they encounter the main forces of the Central Dynasty halfway? If they did the main forces follow the inner demons back? We can't ignore this. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. If the main forces didn't return to the Central Dynasty, then he had to be fully prepared. Suddenly, he took out the divine voice stone. Buzz! Very soon, a shadow appeared. It was Ji Yunhai. "Senior." Qin Feiyang stood up and bowed. "You flatter me, you flatter me." Ji Yunhai hurriedly waved his hands. "You're a senior, why don't you dare? Moreover, you're now the acting patriarch of the Purple Gold Divine Dragon Clan. Don't act like a coward." Boss Ji looked at Ji Yunhai's appearance and instantly reprimanded him angrily. "Grandpa is here too?" Ji Yunhai's expression changed. "Yes." Qin Feiyang turned the divine voice stone slightly, and Boss Ji appeared in front of Ji Yunhai. "Grandpa." Ji Yunhai hurriedly bowed. "Useless." Boss Ji snorted coldly and turned back to look at the bobbers on the water. Ji Yunhai smiled embarrassedly. Looking at Qin Feiyang, he asked, "When did you go to the village?" Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "After we separated at Thousand Phoenix Mountain that day, we came to the village. We have been living here all this time." "I see." Ji Yunhai nodded in realization. Boss Ji's face was cold. He didn't look at Ji Yunhai and said, "Hearing this, don't you feel ashamed?" "Ah." Ji Yunhai looked at Boss Ji suspiciously. What did he mean by that? He couldn't understand it at all. "Looks like you don't have any awareness." "Fine. I can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you." Boss Ji shook his head in disappointment. Ji Yunhai was as confused as a monk. It seemed like he hadn't provoked this old man during this period of time. Qin Feiyang looked at Boss Ji and smiled. "Great-grandfather, I'll go talk to him in private." "Go, go." "So that I won't be annoyed." Boss Ji waved his hand. Qin Feiyang brought the divine voice transmission stone and entered the tea garden in the Black Tortoise world. "What's going on with the old man?" Ji Yunhai finally dared to ask the reason. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Great-grandfather just wanted to say that you didn't come to visit them often." So that's what happened. Then he could have just said it. Why beat around the bush? Ji Yunhai was helpless. "You can't blame great-grandfather for this. You and the monarch shouldn't talk about it. After all, you're busy with work. But shouldn't Ryuko and Ji Shaoi come to visit often? Qin Feiyang shook his head. Ji Yunhai was silent for a while and sighed. To be honest, I've told Shaoi as well. But because of the Eye of Destiny being stolen, he's been angry, so... At this point, Ji Yunhai couldn't continue. He could only sigh. Qin Feiyang frowned and shook his head. It seems like he hasn't realized his mistake. If he had defeated Dong Xingyang in the test that day, I believe that Dong Xingyang wouldn't have any complaints about it. Maybe that's the difference between us. Let's not talk about this. Ji Yunhai waved his hand and asked, "Why did you send me a message?" "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded and said, "Send someone to the entrance of the Forbidden Ocean and help me keep an eye on the Central Dynasty." Keep an eye on the Central Dynasty? Ji Yunhai was shocked. That's right. There are some things that we have to guard against. Most of the Central Dynasty's troops have probably already entered the Forbidden Ocean. If the inner demons and cousin can't persuade them to return, then we have to be fully prepared. So, send someone to keep an eye on the entrance of the Forbidden Ocean. This way, if they really come to the 4 great continents, then we can know their whereabouts immediately. But remember, you have to find a few smart people. Don't let them discover you. Qin Feiyang reminded. Understood. Ji Yunhai nodded. All right, let me know immediately if you have any news. Qin Feiyang smiled. Yes. Coincidentally, I also have something to say. Last time at the 1,000 Phoenix Mountain, didn't I say that I would lay out my cards to the supremacies of the 3 races? These days, the Divine King, the supremacy of the human race, and I have been secretly observing them. Seeing that their dissatisfaction with the Central Dynasty is getting stronger and stronger, I think it's time to lay out my cards and explain everything to them. Ji Yunhai said. Lay out my cards. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and looked at Ji Yunhai. How about this? Find a time and bring them to the village. We'll lay out our cards in front of a group of old men. That's right. These old men are highly respected. With them in charge, this matter will definitely be easier. Ji Yunhai's eyes lit up. Yes. In addition, these supremacies aren't idiots. The reason why they dare to stand up against the Central Dynasty is because they still don't know the foundation of the Central Dynasty. If we let them know, they might have other thoughts. So, we can't be careless about this matter. Qin Feiyang reminded. I understand. In any case, as long as we take a wrong step in the future, we'll definitely end up with our bodies crushed. Ji Yunhai nodded. Then, do you regret it now? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. Regret? Ji Yunhai smiled and shook his head. Don't look at my strength. I've never regretted any of the decisions I've made. Moreover, it was the Central Dynasty that went too far. If we don't resist now, what awaits us will be destruction. Then what you did to the Sky, Cloud Domain, and the Nether Kings held back then, don't you regret it? Qin Feiyang asked. Ji Yunhai fell silent. There's no harm in saying it. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. I don't regret it. After all, back then, we served different masters. Of course, if there's a chance in the future to make up for it, I'll try my best to do so. But I'm making up for it not because of the guilt in my heart, but because I want to resolve the grudge between Madman and me. Ji Yunhai said. Qin Feiyang took a deep look at Ji Yunhai. He's quite a character, he said with a smile. You and senior brother have already discussed the matter. Hurry up and arrange it. Okay. Ji Yunhai nodded. The shadow quickly dissipated. Qin Feiyang also left the Black Tortoise Domain and returned to the river. Done? Boss Ji asked. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded, sat on a small stool, picked up the fishing rod inserted into the ground, and said with a smile, I hope this time I won't catch a big fish again. Who knows? Boss Ji chuckled. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. At the entrance of the Taboo Ocean, 11 figures broke through the air like lightning. This is the East Continent. After leaving the taboo ocean, the 11 people stopped above the ocean and scanned the ocean in front of them, their eyes full of curiosity. It was Dong Yiming and his group. It was the first time they came to the 4 great continents, so everything here was very new to them. After a while, Dong Yiming withdrew his gaze and looked at the 10 of them. Remember, without my orders, you are not allowed to cause trouble. Moreover, from this moment on, you are to change your appearances and conceal your identities. You absolutely cannot expose our identities. Yes, Commander. The 10 people replied respectfully. The 11 people changed their appearances, put on ordinary people's clothes, and quickly left. But they didn't know. After they left, 2 old men silently appeared from the ocean below. Commander? What commander? One of the old men frowned. I don't know, but this acting patriarch does have some foresight. As expected, the Central Dynasty sent people to the 4 great continents again. The other old man sneered. To be honest, Ji Yunhai's performance was indeed surprising. I used to think that he was a very mediocre person. Are you kidding? How can he be mediocre as the king's brother? It's just that he didn't have a chance to show his strength because of the Heavenly Lord. But no matter what, the Heavenly Lord can't die in vain. The Central Dynasty must pay the price for this. Let's go back and report immediately. Murderous intent flashed in their eyes. Then they opened a space-time passage and left without looking back. In the evening, in the village, Boss G and a group of old men sat at the entrance of the village, drinking tea. There were many small wooden stools next to them. Master G turned to Qin Feiyang and the other 2 and said with a smile, they should be here soon. Do you want to leave first? They're here to show their cards, anyway. Is there a need to leave? Frenzy waved his hand indifferently. Boss G said, why don't we leave them for a while and see what their attitudes are? Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded and led the reluctant Frenzy and White-Eyed Wolf into Boss G's house. Then they concealed their presence and silently looked through the window at the entrance of the village. Gradually, the sky was completely dark. A bonfire was lit at the entrance of the village, illuminating the night sky. Buzz! Suddenly, 3 space-time passages appeared in the sky one after another. The king, the divine king, and the supremes of the human race led Ji and Hai and the other supremes out of the space-time passages. Except for the 3 supremes of the human race and the 10 supremes of the god race, everyone was present. The group of people looked at each other and smiled. They landed at the entrance of the village and bowed to the group of old men. Boss G and the other elders were all seniors from the previous era. They were already juniors. Moreover, Boss G and the others had already reached the pinnacle of their strength. Hence, they should be treated with respect, be it for public or private reasons. End of chapter. Chapter 4308. They're all here. No need to be so courteous. After all, you are all important figures of the current generation. If others saw you, wouldn't they laugh at you? Our place is simple and crude. You can just sit here. Boss G laughed hoarsely. What kind of big shot are we? In front of you, we are just little brats, worthless. The king smiled flatteringly. Stop flattering me. Boss G glared at him. Ha! The monarch laughed dryly. The others smiled at each other and sat around the bonfire. In the past, they were very afraid of these old people, but now that they had come into contact with them, they found that they were quite friendly. Master Jijio cut to the chase and asked, "How's the situation in the 3 continents these days?" "Very bad." Upon hearing this, the monarch, the divine king, and the human race supreme being all looked worried. "What is it?" Jijio frowned. "Ever since the incident with Dong Qingyuan, our hatred and disgust for the Central Dynasty has grown stronger with each passing day. I've even heard that some of us have secretly formed an alliance against the Central Dynasty. The king said, "That's a good thing." The Purple Gold Divine Dragon Clan's Great Venerable spoke. "How is this a good thing? Do you know what will happen if the Central Dynasty learns of this?" The king said angrily, "Your Majesty, don't tell me you're still working for the Central Dynasty and the Sovereign Lord." Just as Qin Feiyang said that day in Qingtian City, "If this is the case, then you are blindly loyal." The purple gold dragon god glared at the monarch furiously. "Great Venerable, what kind of attitude is this? Do you want to implicate our entire purple gold divine dragon clan?" Ji Yinhai rebuked. "I didn't. Not only that, I'm doing it for the good of the purple gold divine dragon clan. The Central Dynasty and the Sovereign Lord are no longer worth our lives. Moreover, the Heavenly Monarch can't die so unjustly. If you are still so stubborn, I believe that the Heavenly Monarch will not be able to rest in peace." The purple gold divine dragon closed his eyes in pain and clenched his fists tightly. His brows were filled with hatred. The other 9 venerables of the purple gold divine dragon clan also stood on the Great Venerable's side. The human clan's Great Venerable looked at the monarch and the others. After pondering for a long time, he sighed and said, "I've been thinking about this problem for the past few days. You can say that I've been unable to sleep at night." Everyone couldn't help but look at the human clan's Great Venerable. "I'm thinking, why are we protecting the divine kingdom and working so hard for the Lord?" Finally, I got an answer in my heart. The reason we protect the divine kingdom is actually to protect our people. We hope that they can continue to live happily. Working for the hegemon is actually the same as working for the fate of our 3 races. But now the dignity of the people below is being trampled on. The fate of the 3 great tribes is also threatened. That's why I personally feel that we can no longer remain silent. We have to stand up and resist. We can't let down the trust that the common people have placed in us. The human clan's Great Venerable was so furious that he almost roared out the last sentence. That's right. If we remain silent now, we don't have the right to continue sitting in this position. We don't have the right to have the people believe in us and respect us. The God clan's Great Venerable spoke as well. The monarch, the divine king, and the autarchs exchanged glances. A hint of a smile flashed across their eyes. The situation was better than they had expected. Jijio scanned the group, then looked at the other venerables of the human clan and the God clan. He asked, "Do you all think the same?" Yes. Everyone nodded. The hostility toward the Central Dynasty in their eyes came from the bottom of their hearts. "But have you thought about how we should deal with the Central Dynasty's revenge if we really resist?" Jijio asked. The God clan's Great Venerable roared, "I don't believe that the combined strength of our 3 races can't resist the Central Dynasty." The monarch sighed. "We really can't resist the Central Dynasty. Do you know how many experts there are in the Central Dynasty who possess the will of the heavens?" "I don't know." The God clan's Great Venerable shook his head. The other venerables also looked doubtful. "Let me tell you, as far as I know, there are no less than 5,000 people in the Central Dynasty who possess the will of the heavens." The monarch said, "What, that many?" The venerables' eyes trembled. It was beyond their imagination. The total number of venerables of their 3 races didn't even exceed 100. How could they fight the Central Dynasty with so few people? That's only what we know. It's said that the emperor has an army of reapers. The members of this army are all experts who possess the will of the heavens. No one knows the exact number, but it could be more than 5,000, 10,000, or even more. If we really resist, how are we going to fight them? I'm afraid that even if we sacrifice our lives, it won't be enough." The monarch sighed. The venerables fell silent. This was a number that made them despair. Are we just going to swallow this humiliation? Are we going to let the fate of our three races be in the hands of others? And the Heavenly Lord's death, are we going to let him die in vain? The eyes of the venerables of the purple-gold divine dragon race were filled with anger and unwillingness. The monarch took a deep breath and looked at the venerables. Give me a firm answer. Do you really want to resist? The venerables looked at each other and said in unison, Yes, we should fight for our fate. No regrets. The monarch asked again, No regrets. The group of venerables spoke forcefully. Very well. The monarch nodded and smiled coldly. As long as you have this attitude, I have a way to fight the central dynasty. What way? The venerables looked at the monarch expectantly. The monarch looked at Boss G and the others. Boss G understood. He turned to look the house and said, Come out. The venerables looked up. As the door opened, 3 familiar figures appeared in their line of sight. What are you doing here? The venerables stood up and looked at Qin Feiyang and the others in shock. I invited them here, the monarch said. Why did you do that? Did you forget that the Heavenly Lord's death was also related to them? The venerables of the purple-gold divine dragon race were furious. Calm down. The monarch waved his hand and signaled them to sit down. The venerables held back their anger and killing intent and returned to their seats. Qin Feiyang and the others also walked over. We're all old friends. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. The venerables sneered. Who's old friends with you? The white-eyed wolf sighed. Seems like we're not welcomed here. How sad. We came to help you, but you rolled your eyes at us. Don't cry crocodile tears. Although we're prepared to fight the central dynasty, we've never thought about working with you. Someone scoffed. Can you deal with the central dynasty if you don't work with us? It's not that I'm looking down on you, but even if you command everyone from the 3 races, it won't be enough to deal with the central dynasty. The madman's face was full of disdain. You, the venerables stood up again and glared at the madman. You don't like to hear the truth. If you want to control your own destiny and protect your people, you have to work with us. There's no other choice. The madman sneered and took out a jar of divine wine. He walked to the bonfire and sat on the ground, drinking it happily. Monarch, Divine King, and Ji-Zun look at his attitude. Everyone looked at the 3 venerables angrily. Calm down, calm down. I'm the one who called them here. The Divine King and Ji-Zun also know about this and agreed. If we want to fight back, I think it's necessary to work with Qin Feiyang and the others. The monarch said, But have you forgotten what they've done to the 3 races over the years? The purple-gold divine dragon frowned. Then tell me, what have they done to the 3 races? The monarch asked with a smile. Haven't they done enough? They killed the geniuses of the 3 races, destroyed the 3 sacred grounds, and caused chaos in the 3 continents. The great venerables said. But compared to the sea race and the beast race? The monarch asked again. Facing this question, the great venerables was speechless. The sea race and the beast race were directly wiped out. Although the 3 races did suffer some losses, compared to the sea race and the beast race, our losses are still considered losses. The monarch said. But the great venerables wanted to refute, but he couldn't find a reason to, because it was the truth. Compared to the sea race and the beast race, the 3 races were much luckier. Actually, Qin Feiyang and the others have been showing mercy to the 3 races over the years. Otherwise, we would have followed in the footsteps of the sea race and the beast race. The human races, Ji-Zun sighed. That's right. It's also because of this that we decided to form an alliance with them. Anyway, their target is the central dynasty and the ruler. The enemy of an enemy is a friend. Moreover, Qin Feiyang is the daughter of the monarch and the descendant of Ji Tianyue. In other words, we are on the same side. If we don't cooperate with each other, who should we cooperate with? The divine kings said, "It makes sense, but we have a deep hatred for them." The human race's great venerables frowned. Well, this junior would like to ask, what kind of deep hatred do we have? Did this junior exterminate your race or accidentally kill your loved ones? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile while looking at the human race's great venerables. The human race's great venerables were speechless for a while. The words deep hatred should be said by me, because the hatred between us started when you invaded the Sky Cloud realm. Back then, when the Divine Kingdom invaded the Sky Cloud realm for the first time, how many people died tragically? I'm afraid it's not an exaggeration to say that the people were plunged into misery and suffering. Even the entire continent was beaten to the point of collapse. Such a big hatred. But I didn't even bother to argue with you. What are you arguing about? Qin Feiyang's eyes were cold, and the group of venerables was speechless. End of chapter. Chapter 4309. What? None of you are going to speak. That means what we said makes sense. To be honest, with the damage you caused to the Sky Cloud realm, even if we destroy you now, it will be hard for you to forgive your sins. So, you should thank us. Thank us for being magnanimous and not arguing with you. The madman smiled coldly. You, the venerables, glared at the madman. Although it was their fault to invade the Sky Cloud realm, there was no need to be so arrogant. Actually, it's not Senior Brother's fault. Because if you know Senior Brother's true identity, you will feel ashamed. Qin Feiyang said. What identity? Everyone was suspicious. Qin Feiyang said, Senior Brother is the reincarnation of the Blood Demon King. What? You are the reincarnation of the Blood Demon King. The group of venerables was shocked. Although they had all been to the Sky Cloud realm, they had heard of the name of the Blood Demon King. It was the Blood Demon King who led the Blood Demon race to the Nether King's hell to stop Ji Yunhai. Now you can understand. Senior Brother hates you to the bone, but for the overall situation, for the people of the Divine Kingdom, he is willing to let go of everything and cooperate with you to deal with the Central Dynasty. For Senior Brother to do this, it is enough to show his benevolence and generosity. But what about you? You're all clearly guilty people who deserve to be punished, yet you're here talking shamelessly about deep hatred. May I ask if you don't feel ashamed? Qin Feiyang's words were like pearls, making the group of venerables lower their heads in shame. Since we have said so, we don't want to say anything more. You can directly state your position. If you form an alliance with us, we will be comrades in the future, relying on each other and advancing together. If you don't form an alliance with us, of course, we won't deal with you like we dealt with the beast race and the sea race. But if you are in danger, don't say that we don't help you. After the white-eyed wolf finished speaking, he silently looked at the group of venerables, waiting for their decision. The group of venerables hesitated. This was really a difficult choice. If you want to rebel against the Central Dynasty, you have to work with them. Otherwise, we'll definitely oppose it. This matter involves too many things, and we can't gamble with the fate of the three races. The monarch, the divine king, and the supremes of the human race all expressed their opinions one after another. The god race great venerable frowned and said, You mean if you don't cooperate with Qin Feiyang and the others, you will continue to obey the Central Dynasty? Not bad. The three of them nodded. How capable are they? Why are the three of you so confident? Do you think we can fight against the Central Dynasty with them around? The group of supremacies was puzzled. Capable? Haven't you seen what they are capable of? Let's not talk about that. Even if we only talk about the ultimate mysteries that they took from the sea beasts and beasts, it should be enough to boost our strength in a short period of time. The king said. The group of supremacies looked at each other. This was the truth. The great venerable of the God clan asked, "You mean that they will give us the ultimate Upanishad?" "Yes." The monarch nodded. "How is this possible? Will they be so generous?" The supremacies shook their heads in disbelief. "Regarding this matter, you have really underestimated them. Now that things have come to this, we will not hide it from you. In fact, they have already given us the ultimate Upanishad." The monarch said, "What? Why didn't we know about it?" The supremacies were bewildered. "Because this matter is too important and you have already grasped the will of the heavenly Tao and no longer need to fuse with the inheritance. We did not tell you. It is also because of their sincerity that we decided to form an alliance with them." The monarch smiled faintly. He said this to avoid some trouble, because if he said that they had already formed an alliance, the supremacies might use their endless imagination. After all, the power of a person's image was quite terrifying. The group of supremacies was stunned. The second supremacies of the god race asked, "How many?" "Our 3 races each have 1,000. Each has 6 ultimate Upanishad of the ultimate Upanishad. A total of 18,000 ultimate Upanishad of the ultimate Upanishad of the ultimate Upanishad." The monarch smiled faintly. "So many?" The group of supremacies was shocked. They had never even heard of 3,000 inheritances. In the past, if they were able to obtain 1 or 2 inheritances, they could already burn incense to thank the gods. A total of 3,000 portions. What kind of concept was that? Moreover, they were all inheritances of ultimate profundities of the strongest laws. If they made good use of these inheritances, wouldn't the 3 great races be able to create a total of 5,000 to 6,000 experts with the will of the heavenly Tao in a very short period of time? In this way, the strength of the 3 races would instantly soar to an unprecedented level. Naturally, they would have more confidence in dealing with the central dynasty. The supreme martial artist of the human race took a deep breath and calmed the shock in his heart. He looked at the monarch and the other 2 and said, "So, the 3 of you have already accepted it. Wouldn't I be an idiot if I didn't accept such a great gift?" The monarch chuckled. Yes, of course he had to. This was a good fortune delivered to his doorstep. Only a fool would reject it. The purple gold dragon god turned to look at Qin Feiyang and the other 2 and said, "If we say that we don't want to work with you now, will you take back these inheritances?" "How can we take back a gift that we've already given out? Besides, no matter what, I'm also a descendant of the purple gold dragon race. It's my duty to help the purple gold dragon race. As for the god race and the human race, the divine king and senior supreme are both reasonable people. I'm willing to give them to them for free." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Hearing this, the supremacies had mixed feelings. They were clearly enemies, but they were willing to give for the 3 great races. Looking at their current behavior, how were they different from villains? It really made them feel ashamed, especially the 10 supremacies of the purple gold dragon race. Qin Feiyang said that he was also a descendant of the purple gold dragon race, and it was his duty to help the purple gold dragon race. This made the 10 supremacies feel extremely complicated. Was this Qin Feiyang's character? He was a classic example of repaying evil with kindness. Ancestors, what do you think about this matter? In the end, the 10 supremacies looked at Boss Ji and the group of elders. Master Jijio chuckled and said, "Without our statement, would the monarch dare to accept the 1,000 inheritances from Qin Feiyang?" The 10 supremacies understood. It turned out that they had already obtained the approval of these ancestors. Since even these old ancestors had agreed, what else could they say? All right, in the end, the 10 supremacies turned to look at Qin Feiyang and said, "All right, we'll form an alliance with you." As soon as these words came out, whether it was Boss Ji and the group of elders, the monarch and Ji and Hai, a smile appeared on their faces. Qin Feiyang was the same. "Patriarch, what are you laughing at? Could it be that you already knew about this?" The purple gold dragon race's great supremacies looked at Ji Yunhai suspiciously. Yes, not only do I know, but I've also obtained a few ultimate inheritances. Soon, I'll be able to grasp the will of the heavenly Tao. Ji Yunhai nodded, seeming to be in a good mood. So, we venerables are the only ones who are kept in the dark? The great supremacies were stunned. We didn't mean to hide it from you guys. After all, this is a serious matter, and we only dared to say it after you guys made your stand. After all, Old Wu and the other spies were a good lesson. Ji Yunhai smiled. All right, the 10 supremacies smiled helplessly, seeing that the 10 supremacies of the purple gold divine dragon race had agreed. The divine king and the human supremacy could not help but turn to their subordinates and ask, "What about you guys?" The god race's great supremacy said with a bitter smile, "If we still don't agree now, wouldn't we be heartless people?" The other supremacies nodded one after another. However, there's something I'd like to say first. After we form an alliance, we must treat each other with sincerity and not plot against each other behind their backs. It's best if we can swear a blood oath. The god race's great supremacy said. That's right. Although it's a little childish, we have to swear a blood oath. This way, be it us or Qin Feiyang, you guys can truly trust each other. The human supremacy said. All right, Qin Feiyang nodded. Then let's begin. As the human supremacy stood up, the other supremacies also stood up. Qin Feiyang, the frenzied one, and the white-eyed wolf stood up as well. With the heavens as witness, today the god race, the human race, and the purple gold divine dragon race form an alliance with Qin Feiyang and the other two. We will live and die together, advance and retreat together. If there's any disloyalty, may the heavens and earth destroy us. As soon as he finished speaking, oaths descended from the sky and entered their skulls. The boulder in the hearts of the 3 supremacies was finally lifted. As long as these supremacies nodded in agreement, it was basically a matter of course. Qin Feiyang looked at the 3 supremacies and said with a smile, "Seniors, I'm sure you haven't unlocked the gate of potential yet, right?" "No, we don't even dare to tell them about the inheritance, let alone unlocking the gate of potential." The king shook his head and smiled. "Gate of potential? What do you mean?" The group of supremacies looked at Qin Feiyang and the king in surprise. "You guys don't know, this kid can refine pills that can unlock the gate of potential. He has already given us a lot of them last time. The divine king, supremacy, second brother, and these old men have all unlocked the gate of potential." The king looked at the group of supremacies and smiled. The group of supremacies was shocked. There was actually such a pill in this world. He wasn't lying to them, right? Ji Yunhai stood up and took off the clothes on his chest. The potential imprint immediately appeared in front of everyone. The king and the human supremacy looked at each other and also showed their potential imprints. If Ji Yunhai was the only one who had unlocked the gate of potential, they wouldn't be convinced. However, all 3 of them had their potential imprints, so there was no need to doubt it. "We old guys won't do such a childish thing." Boss Ji laughed with a hoarse voice. The supremacies looked at the group of old men and saw the smiles on their faces. Their breathing couldn't help but quicken. Who didn't desire the gate of potential? Especially all the gates of potential. Immortal God of War will continue to be updated in the new book pavilion. There will be no advertisements in the website. Please bookmark and recommend the new book pavilion. If you like Immortal God of War, please bookmark Immortal God of War. The new book pavilion updates the fastest. Chapter 43:10. Qin Feiyang looked at the expressions of the group of supremacies, and a faint smile appeared on his face. With a wave of his hand, pills appeared one after another. Dragon-shaped pill energy lingered around them and rose into the air. This was what he had instructed Dan Wonkai to prepare before. What pills? The group of supremacies was suspicious. Before Qin Feiyang could speak, Ji and Hai spoke first. This is the pill to unlock the door of potential. This is the pill to unlock the door of potential? The group of supremacies looked at the pills floating in front of Qin Feiyang, their eyes full of surprise. Was this for real? Was he playing with them? The king smiled and said, "These pills are obviously for you. Why don't you thank Qin Feiyang?" Thank you, thank you." The group of supremacies thanked him repeatedly, but they still had a doubtful attitude. Qin Feiyang waved his hand again, and the high-grade Dominator weapon, Star Tower, appeared. Looking at the Star Tower, smiles appeared on the faces of the monarch and the others. Star Tower, God-slaying halberd, and Sky Extinction Sword were originally the high-grade Dominator weapons of the Dragon God, Neptune and Yulao, but now they had all fallen into the hands of Qin Feiyang and the other two. This undoubtedly increased their strength by a large margin. Get ready to unlock the door of potential. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Okay, the group of supremacies nodded. Under Qin Feiyang's guidance, the group of people swallowed a potential pill one after another. The pressure of Star Tower surged out violently. Boom! In just a moment, the group of supremacies felt a heart-wrenching pain that swept through their bodies, as if their bodies were about to explode. But after all, they were experts who had mastered the will of the heavenly Tao. This bit of pain was nothing to him. Soon, a muffled sound exploded in the group of people's bodies, like thunder. Then, beams of divine light shot out from each of their chests. They took off their clothes to check, and there was indeed an additional potential mark on their chest. Furthermore, with the opening of the door of potential, they could clearly feel that their essence, energy, and spirit had undergone a great transformation, as if they had been reborn. Can it really unlock the door of potential? The scene was dead silent. The group of venerable ones looked at each other. This felt like a dream. Thank you. Thank you very much. When they came to their senses, the group of people hurriedly stood up and looked at Qin Feiyang, cupping their hands and thanking him sincerely. This time, they finally believed that there was such a heaven-defying pill in this world. Now that we're allies, there's no need to be polite. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. He then set up a time formation under the feet of a group of venerables. Then he continued to open the second gate of potential. The time formation was set up to allow the group of supremacies to recuperate midway. Moreover, it would save a lot of time. A moment passed. The gates of potential of the group of venerables were all opened. Feeling the changes in their bodies, the group of people was extremely excited, because this kind of transformation was quite obvious. When they opened the gate of potential, they had a completely different mental appearance from when they opened the gate of potential. They were hale and hearty, their faces were rosy, and they seemed to have become a lot younger. They really didn't expect that by forming an alliance with Qin Feiyang and the other two, they could still get such benefits. For experts of their level, there were not many things that were worth pursuing because they didn't lack them. If you want power, you have status. If you want wealth, you have wealth. But the gate of potential was undoubtedly one of them. Now, you shouldn't regret your previous choice, right? The king chuckled. No, no. The group of people hurriedly shook their heads. Fortunately, they made this choice. If it weren't for the gate of potential, they would never be fated with it. In addition, I'm going to give you all a gift. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. What other gift? The group of people was full of anticipation. Qin Feiyang asked with a smile, "You all should have only mastered the ultimate profound of the 6 strongest laws, right?" Yes. The group of people nodded. Such strength is similar to the members of the Death God army. In other words, seniors, your current strength is only equivalent to that of a member of the Death God army. Qin Feiyang said. Indeed, the group of people frowned. Although they were very strong in the 4 great continents, they were not worth mentioning in front of the central dynasty. You are the supremacies of the 3 major races, representing the West Continent, the South Continent, and the North Continent. So you all still need to improve your strength. Now tell me what ultimate profound you lack, and I'll give them all to you. Free of charge, Qin Feiyang smiled. Really? The group of supremacies was overjoyed. How can I lie to you? I'll give them to you now. However, I can't help you with the laws of light and darkness and the laws of life and death. Qin Feiyang smiled. Don't worry, we won't be so greedy. In the entire divine kingdom, only you and Lu Yuntian have comprehended the laws of life and death. As for the laws of light and darkness, it's not that easy. The group of supremacies shook their heads and laughed. Time law, space-time law, karma law, devour law, death law, life law, destruction law, and nothingness law. These were the 8 ultimate laws apart from the laws of light and darkness and the laws of life and death. If one couldn't fuse the laws of light and darkness and comprehend the laws of life and death, mastering the 8 ultimate laws was the pinnacle. If one was lucky enough to fuse the laws of light and darkness, that would be the pinnacle. As for the laws of life and death, probably not many people in the world dared to think about comprehending this super law. So, mastering 9 ultimate laws was the limit. To be able to master 9 supreme laws of nature, one could basically be called invincible. Suppressing their excitement, the group of supremacies reported the ultimate profound they needed, one after another. Qin Feiyang didn't go back on his words and gave them all the ultimate profound they needed. This made the group of people extremely excited. Not only did they open all the doors of potential, but they also obtained these ultimate profound laws. It was simply a heaven-defying fortune. Cough, cough. Ji Yunhai coughed and looked at the group of supremacies enviously. He had only obtained a few, just enough for him to grasp the will of heaven. However, he was too embarrassed to ask Qin Feiyang about this, because greedy people were the most annoying. Moreover, he hadn't been in contact with Qin Feiyang and the others for long, so he wasn't that familiar with them. Now you should be satisfied. Back then, we could have worked hard to get these pills and inheritances, but now, before you even asked, Qin Feiyang took the initiative to give them to you. The king pursed his lips. Huh. The group of supremacies laughed dryly. The great supremacy of the purple gold divine dragon clan looked at the king and asked suspiciously, May I ask, how many more things are you hiding from us? About this, the king chuckled and said, There are indeed quite a lot. The divine king and Ji Zun couldn't help but look at each other and smile. Huh. The group of supremacies looked at the 3 of them. Quite a lot. The king said, First of all, the heavenly monarch is not dead. He's not dead? The 10 supremacies of the purple gold divine dragon clan were surprised. Yes, last time he was just faking his death. This is also our plan. Now he is cultivating in seclusion in Qin Feiyang's black tortoise realm. The king chuckled. The group of supremacies was stunned. This news was simply too surprising. Faking his death? I don't understand. Why did you arrange for him to fake his death? A supremacy of the God clan looked at the king in confusion. What else could it be? He doesn't want to continue being the patriarch of the purple gold divine dragon clan. The king snorted coldly. Everyone was stunned. If the world knew this reason, they would definitely not know whether to laugh or cry. The patriarch of the purple gold divine dragon clan was a high position and power that others could not even imagine, but this heavenly monarch Ji actually did not want to be the patriarch. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Actually, we also need him to fake his death. Need? Everyone was stunned. Yes. After all, he went to Blue Sun Mountain to kill us. If the inner demons and big cousin don't kill him, then this show will be very difficult to end. Qin Feiyang nodded. Blue Sun Mountain? Kill you. That can't be right. He went to Blue Sun Mountain to kill Lu Yuntian and Lu Yunfeng's family. What does it have to do with you? Also, what inner demons? What big cousin? Who are these people? The group of supremacies was confused. They did not understand Qin Feiyang's words at all. Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other and smiled. The inner demons and my big cousin are Lu Yuntian and Lu Yunfeng, and the family members who died in Blue Sun Mountain are also our disguises. Qin Feiyang explained. What? Lu Yuntian and Lu Yunfeng are your people? The so-called family members are all your disguises? The group of people trembled. Yes, Lu Yuntian is my inner demons and Lu Yunfeng's real name is Lu Jejin. He is my cousin. We pretended to be the inner demons and big cousins, family members, in order to gain the central dynasty's trust. This way, when the inner demons and big cousin return to the central dynasty, they will be able to find out the specific situation of the death god army. Qin Feiyang smiled. Gasp! All the venerables couldn't help but gasp after hearing this. Lu Yuntian and Lu Yunfeng, who were feared by the four continents, were actually Qin Feiyang's people? And all of this was deliberately set up by Qin Feiyang and the others? It was too terrifying. No wonder the monarch, the divine king, and the supremes were so confident in Qin Feiyang and the others. They had spies in the central dynasty. Moreover, these two spies were both masters who made people tremble in fear. The inner demons and big cousin have already returned to the central dynasty. I believe that with their ability, they will soon find out the situation of the death god army. Qin Feiyang looked up in the direction of the east continent and smiled. The group of supremacies also looked up and could not help but swallow. If there were such two terrifying guys lurking around them, this matter. Just thinking about it made their scalps tingle. At this moment, Ji Yinhai looked at Qin Feiyang and the other two and said, It just so happens that I also have a piece of news to tell you. What news? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and looked back at Ji Yinhai suspiciously. Didn't you ask me to send someone to the Forbidden Ocean? When I returned, I immediately sent people to the Taboo Ocean to keep watch. In the end, I really discovered over a dozen unfamiliar faces coming out from the Taboo Ocean. Ji Yinhai said in a deep voice. How many? Qin Feiyang's pupils shrank and he hurriedly asked. 11. The leader is an old man. The other 10 people all call him commander. Ji Yinhai said. Commander! Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other. What kind of existence would be called a commander? End of this chapter. Chapter 43:11. The king pondered for a while and looked at the three of them. Is Dong Qin in your hands? Do you want to ask her? Dong Qin is in your hands? The supremacies looked at the three of them in shock. Yes, when we captured Dong Laifu, we also captured Dong Qin. Qin Feiyang nodded. The group looked at each other. They were indeed a group of ruthless people. One of the 5 unparalleled geniuses of the central dynasty had been captured by them without anyone knowing. If the king hadn't said it, they would have thought that Dong Qin had returned to the central dynasty. Do you know what they look like? Qin Feiyang turned to Ji Yunhai and asked. They changed their faces when they entered the East Continent, but our people have seen their true faces. Ji Yunhai waved his hand and 11 figures appeared. They were Dong Yiming and the others. These people had come to the 4 great continents for the first time, so no one knew them. Even Boss Ji and the others had seen them for the first time. Did you see their clothes? There is a pattern of a sword on their chest. The king pointed at the clothes on their chests and said, There must be some meaning behind this pattern. Divine King whispered, Could it be the symbol of the death god army? The human supremacy said in surprise, Death god army, Commander. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed and nodded. It's very likely, because under normal circumstances, there wouldn't be such a title. Since someone from the Central Dynasty has entered the 4 great continents, we shouldn't stay here for too long. How about this? We'll go back first. You guys go investigate and inform us immediately if there's any news. Divine King looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and said, Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. It seemed that they couldn't stay in the village in the future, in case they were accidentally seen by the Death God army. After the 3 races left, Qin Feiyang also got up and looked at Boss Ji and the others. He smiled and said, Great-grandfather, great-grandmother, we have to leave too. Understood. Be careful. Boss Ji reminded. I will. Qin Feiyang smiled and decisively opened a space-time tunnel. He walked in with the madman and the white-eyed wolf without looking back. 1,000 Phoenix Mountain. This place had really been through a lot. That was because there had been many times when Qin Feiyang and the others had fought against others there. Whoosh! Under the night sky, 3 young men walked out of a space-time tunnel. They were Qin Feiyang and the other 2. After scanning their surroundings, the 3 of them directly entered the black tortoise world. However, what they didn't know was that there were 3 middle-aged men standing on top of a mountain not far away. As Qin Feiyang's group appeared, the 3 middle-aged men immediately looked at Qin Feiyang's group. It's them. His appearance is exactly the same as what we heard. Lord Commander's foresight is godly. As expected, the 1,000 Phoenix Mountain is a place they often come to. One of the middle-aged men sneered. They should have gone to the Black Tortoise Realm. Should I release my divine perception to search for them? Another middle-aged man asked. Don't, so as not to alert them. Let's inform the Lord Commander first. The 3rd middle-aged man spoke. Black Tortoise World, Soul Ceiling Valley. Qin Feiyang's group of 3 stood in the sky and looked down at Dong Qin, who was suppressed in the Soul Ceiling Valley. Dong Qin was also looking up at the 3 of them, her eyes filled with resentment. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and Dong Yiming's group of 11 appeared. When Dong Qin looked at Dong Yiming and the others, a trace of suspicion flashed across her face. However, when she saw the sword symbol on their bodies, her pupils shrank. This abnormality was clearly noticed by Qin Feiyang, and he smiled. It seems that you know them. I don't. Dong Qin said coldly, and then lowered her head in silence. Madman raised his eyebrows and grinned. It seems that you still don't understand your current situation. Isn't it just death? Dong Qin didn't even look at the 3 of them and said contemptuously. Madman immediately lost his temper, because Dong Qin was indeed not afraid of death. A person who wasn't even afraid of death. What else would she be afraid of? Headache. What should they do to make this woman cooperate with them? Qin Feiyang said, How about this? Tell us what we want to know, and we will let you go. Do you think I will believe your nonsense? Dong Qin sneered. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but frown, and said in a deep voice, Do you really want to force me to let Long Chen use the soul-controlling technique to control you? Hearing the words soul-controlling technique, Dong Qin's heart tensed up. During this period of time, I suppressed you in the Soul Ceiling Valley and didn't control you, not because I sympathized with you, but because I didn't want to trouble Long Chen. So I advise you to cooperate. This way, you may have a way to live. Qin Feiyang said. Dong Qin finally looked up at Qin Feiyang, but she was furious and roared, You are a demon. Yes, I am a demon. As long as you fall into my hands, I can make you despair any time. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered coldly. Dong Qin stared at Qin Feiyang, not to be outdone, but in the end she was defeated. Anyway, she would tell the truth even if she was controlled by the soul-controlling technique. So she might as well say it herself. They are from the Death God Army. They are really from the Death God Army. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 looked at each other, and their pupils shrank. But I don't know who they are, because I have never seen them before. That's all I know. Dong Qin said. A simple sentence almost made Madman and White-Eyed Wolf go berserk. As one of the 5 peerless geniuses, even if she didn't know the details of the Death God army, she should know the old man in the lead. After all, he is the commander of the Death God army. It's up to you to believe it or not. Anyway, I am telling the truth. After saying this, Dong Qin fell silent again, and she didn't look at Qin Feiyang and the other 2 anymore. Qin Feiyang looked at Dong Qin for a moment, and then turned to look at Madman and White-Eyed Wolf and said, "She won't lie to us about this. Senior brother, go find Mu Qing and ask him to check the whereabouts of these people with the all-seeing eye." Okay. Madman nodded, turned around, and opened the space-time tunnel to leave. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and pondered for a moment, and then returned to the tea garden with White-Eyed Wolf. "What are you thinking about?" Seeing Qin Feiyang sitting at the tea table with his head lowered and silent, White-Eyed Wolf couldn't help but ask in confusion. "I am thinking. Didn't you say that there is a large army? Why did only these 11 people come to the 4 great continents?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "It is a little strange." White-Eyed Wolf thought for a moment, and suddenly his eyes lit up and he asked, "Is it related to the inner demons and big cousin?" "It should be." Qin Feiyang nodded, because this was the only way to explain it. If this was the case, most of the Death God army should have returned to the Central Dynasty. Whoosh! At this time, Madman flew through the air and landed in front of the tea table. He looked at Qin Feiyang and White-Eyed Wolf with a strange expression. What? The 2 were puzzled. Madman grinned and said, "You will never guess where these people are now." Qin Feiyang and White-Eyed Wolf looked at each other and fell into deep thought. Where could these people go after coming to the 4 great continents? Suddenly, White-Eyed Wolf asked, "Mount Supreme?" "No." Madman shook his head. "Island of Gods?" Qin Feiyang also asked. "No." Madman shook his head again. White-Eyed Wolf said, "Then there is no doubt it must be the Purple Gold Divine Dragon Clan." "Wrong." Madman grinned. "Is that wrong?" White-Eyed Wolf was stunned. Wasn't it most likely that the people of the Central Dynasty came to the 4 great continents to find the Divine King and the others? Qin Feiyang couldn't be bothered to guess anymore and urged, "Don't keep us in suspense, tell us." 8 of them are in Qingtian City. The other 3... At this point, Madman smiled playfully and said, "Far away in the horizon, close in front of us." Far away in the horizon, close in front of us? Qin Feiyang and White-Eyed Wolf looked at each other and suddenly shivered. 1,000 Phoenix Mountain. Yes, these 3 are in 1,000 Phoenix Mountain. After all, they're hiding on a mountain peak not far from us. Madman chuckled. White-Eyed Wolf said in surprise, "Then when we came to 1,000 Phoenix Mountain, we were already seen by them." That's right. And they have already informed the 8 people in Qingtian City. Madman nodded. How strange. White-Eyed Wolf was puzzled. Why are they in Qingtian City and 1,000 Phoenix Mountain? I think they should have found out that we often appear in 1,000 Phoenix Mountain and Qingtian City, so they are waiting for us in these 2 places. Qin Feiyang guessed. You're pretty smart. White-Eyed Wolf chuckled and looked at Madman. Is that commander in 1,000 Phoenix Mountain or Qingtian City? He is in Qingtian City. And previously he sent a message telling the 3 from 1,000 Phoenix Mountain not to alarm us and just to keep an eye on us. Madman said, "Ha! It seems that they already know our methods and don't dare to fight us head-on." White-Eyed Wolf laughed strangely. That's about it. Madman nodded and looked at Qin Feiyang and Madman. He teased, how about it? Do you want to give them a surprise? Of course. Qin Feiyang smiled. This was prey that had delivered itself to their doorstep. Moreover, these people were all members of the Death God army, and there was even a commander among them. As long as they captured them, they would definitely be able to find out the exact situation of the Death God army. White-Eyed Wolf said, "Since that's the case, we have to capture the leader first. Let's go to Qingtian City and capture that commander first." "No, there are too many people in Qingtian City. If a battle breaks out and they are implicated, Jizun will definitely settle the score with us. Let's capture these 3 first. As for the other 8, we will think of a way to lure them over." Qin Feiyong smiled. "All right." White-Eyed Wolf nodded. Jizun might seem amiable usually, but his temper was extremely fiery. Once they provoked him, they would definitely be beaten up. Although their current strength was not weaker than Jizun, the other party was still an elder. Juniors beating up their elders? How improper would that be? Therefore, it was better not to provoke him. "Let's go." Qin Feiyong stood up and directly activated the concealment technique. Together with Madman and White-Eyed Wolf, they silently appeared in the sky above Thousand Phoenix Mountain. Madman glanced at the surrounding mountains and pointed at a mountain peak not far away. He smiled slyly and said, "Look, they're standing there." End of this chapter. Chapter 43:12. On top of the mountain, 3 burly men stood silently under the night sky like ghosts. Their eyes were locked on the void where Qin Feiyong and the other 2 had disappeared. 1 for each. The White-Eyed Wolf transmitted his voice. "No problem." The madman smiled. Of course, he was also transmitting his voice secretly. Soon, Qin Feiyong and the other 2 fell behind the 3 burly men. The 3 middle-aged men didn't notice that there was someone behind them. They didn't sense any danger, because Qin Feiyong and the other 2 not only restrained their aura, but also didn't show any killing intent. In this way, no matter how strong one's perception was, they wouldn't sense any danger. "Do it!" Qin Feiyong shouted in a low voice. The 3 of them attacked at the same time and slapped the backs of the 3 burly men. Boom! At this moment, killing intent erupted. A terrifying aura and the terrifying power of the laws also emerged. The 3 middle-aged men were shocked. But at this time they had no time to dodge or counterattack. Puff! Accompanied by a mouthful of blood, the 3 of them flew out from the top of the mountain like meteorites and smashed into a giant mountain on the opposite side. Their faces were as pale as paper. Their sea of qi had been shattered. Boom! With a loud sound, the 3 of them smashed into the giant mountain on the opposite side. The giant mountain was shattered. The 3 of them were seeing stars, and their blood was boiling. What's going on? Someone can sneak behind us without us noticing? In the dust, the 3 of them were full of horror. Who do you think you are? How dare you spy on us? A mocking laugh sounded. 3 figures stepped into the air step by step and entered the sight of the 3. Qin Feiyong, Madman Mo, Golden-Winged Wolf King. The 3 of them changed their expressions. What's going on? How did Qin Feiyong and the other 2 know that they were hiding here? And these days they had been changing their faces and hiding their names in the 4 continents. They had never revealed their identity to anyone. Even the monarch, the divine king, and the human race didn't know. In other words, they were now equivalent to 3 ordinary people. If they were ordinary people, why would Qin Feiyong and the other 2 sneak attack them from behind? When they came back to their senses, the 3 of them jumped up and fled without looking back. Qin Feiyong and the other 2 exchanged a smile. His qi sea had already been shattered, and he still wanted to escape? White-Eyed Wolf activated momentary time and stepped in front of the 3 of them. With his energy reserve shattered, he could not activate the momentary time. Naturally, his speed could not be compared to the White-Eyed Wolf's. When the middle-aged man and the other 2 saw this, they immediately turned around in horror and fled to the other side. The madman chuckled and also activated the momentary time, blocking in front of the three. The three of them turned pale again and prepared to flee in another direction. But when they looked back, Qin Feiyong was already behind them. "What are you doing? We have no enmity with you. Why are you plotting against us?" The three of them roared in anger. "No enmity?" The white-eyed wolf paused for a moment and asked jokingly, "Then why are you spying on us here?" "Spying?" The three of them looked at each other and shook their heads at the white-eyed wolf. "What spying? We don't understand. We were just preparing to hunt here. We didn't know that the three of you were here." They thought that Qin Feiyong and the other two did not know their identities, so they wanted to pretend to be stupid and get away with it. At this moment, they were not wearing the Death God Army's uniform, so they felt that Qin Feiyong and the other two must not know their identities. The reason why they were plotting against them was probably because they found out that they were spying on them. "Hunting? Then the prey is us." The madman looked at the three of them playfully. "No, no. We are here to hunt beasts. We have no intention of offending you. Please be magnanimous and let us live. Yes, we really didn't know that the three of you were cultivating here. If we knew, we wouldn't have dared to come to Thousand Phoenix Mountain." The three of them knelt in the air and begged with snot and tears. If they did not know their identities in advance, they would have been fooled by them. Qin Feiyong and the other two looked at each other and did not say anything. They just silently watched the three of them play dumb. "We are really sorry, Lord Qin. You are a good person. Please spare us this time. We swear that we will never come to Thousand Phoenix Mountain again." The three of them looked at Qin Feiyong and tried to curry favor with him. "Do you know who we are?" Qin Feiyong asked with a smile. "Of course I know. Who in the 4 great continents doesn't know of the three of you? Moreover, the three of us have always respected the three of you." Seeing Qin Feiyong's pleasant expression, the three of them thought that they had deceived Qin Feiyong, so they worked even harder to win his favor. "Respect us? You must be kidding us. You are from the Divine Kingdom, and we are invaders of the Divine Kingdom. You still respect us invaders?" The white-eyed wolf said with a playful smile. Even he had to admit defeat to the ability of the three of them to lie without batting an eyelid. "Yes, the three of you are indeed not from the Divine Kingdom, but what you have done is admirable. The God race, the human race, the purple gold divine dragon race, the oceanic race, and the beast race are all overlords of our divine kingdom. However, the oceanic race and the beast race were all wiped out by you in a single day. The human race, the God race, and the purple gold divine dragon race all trembled in fear when facing you. With such means and courage, it is no exaggeration to say that you are the gods that we look up to." The three of them flattered the three of them. The white-eyed wolf grinned and said, "Not bad, not bad. Although I know that you are flattering us in order to survive, it is indeed pleasant to hear. We are not flattering you. What we said is the truth. If you don't believe me, you can ask around. Many young people nowadays regard you as their idols." The three of them also laughed. They thought that they were smart, but it turned out that they were so easy to fool. "Really?" The white-eyed wolf seemed to be very happy. "More real than real gold." The three of them nodded. "All right, you guys can go." The white-eyed wolf waved his hand. "Thank you, Lord Wolf King." The three of them were wild with joy and got up to leave. However, the next moment they couldn't help but be stunned, because Qin Feiyong and the other two didn't make way. "Three lords, what are you doing?" The three of them were puzzled. The white-eyed wolf said, "Didn't I tell you to go? Why are you still asking?" "But if you don't make way, how can we go?" The three of them had a bitter expression. The white-eyed wolf frowned and said, "I am a little puzzled. There are roads in all directions. Do you have to pass by us?" "Yes, yes, yes." The three of them nodded and flew into the sky. Shwa! Lunatic took a step forward and crossed the sky. The three of them froze and flew down again. Qin Feiyang also activated momentary time and crossed the sky. Three lords, what do you want to do? The three of them were about to cry. Didn't they say that they would let them go? The white-eyed wolf grinned and said, I told you to go and you dare to go. What else? The three of them asked with a sobbing tone. The white-eyed wolf mocked, You guys are quite good at acting, but unfortunately, we already know your identity. The three of them were shocked and hurriedly said, We are just ordinary people. What identity can we have? There must be some misunderstanding. The white-eyed wolf took out 3 pills and asked, Then do you dare to take them? The middle-aged man and his 2 companions looked at the facial restoration pill, their faces filled with panic. Did he really know their identity? But how was that possible? Their identity had always been kept a secret. This time, a total of 11 people from the Death God army came, and one of them is a commander. Now, this commander and 7 others are in Qingtian City. Am I right? The white-eyed wolf looked at the 3 of them with a mocking expression. The 3 of them were extremely shocked. Not only did he know their identity, but he also knew how many of them came and even knew about the existence of the commander. What was going on? It was as if Qin Feiyang and the other 2 had seen it with their own eyes. Wait. Could it be the omniscient eye? That wasn't right either. The omniscient eye was indeed heaven-defying, but there was a prerequisite. The prerequisite was that he must know the other party's name or appearance. This was the first time they came to the 4 great continents, and they had already changed their appearances after leaving the taboo ocean. How could Qin Feiyang and the others know their names or appearance? Are you wondering why we know so much about it? The white-eyed wolf asked with a smile. The middle-aged man and the other 2 remained silent. The white-eyed wolf clenched his fist, and the face-restoring pill in his hand shattered. He sneered and said, Because we already knew that the Central Dynasty would send people again, so we set up spies at the entrance of the taboo ocean. What? The 3 of them trembled. Now you understand. The moment you entered the 4 great continents, we already knew your identity. The white-eyed wolf said, If that was the case, the middle-aged man and the other 2 wouldn't suspect the 3 races. Then why did you not care about us these days? The 3 of them asked in a deep voice. Because we did not take you seriously at all. Even if there were thousands of you, we would still be able to squash you like a bunch of ants, let alone a dozen of you. Unfortunately, you did not have eyes and came to spy on us. Aren't you courting death? As the white-eyed wolf finished speaking, a monstrous, murderous aura erupted and rushed toward the 3 of them. Terrifying. It's really too terrifying. No wonder even the leader, Lu Yuntian, Lu Yunfeng, and the 5 unparalleled geniuses were defeated by these 3. Run! The 3 of them trembled, both physically and mentally. This was their first official encounter, and they felt an unprecedented fear. As one of the 3 of them roared, a terrifying blood aura rushed out of their bodies, and the void instantly turned into a sea of blood. The next moment, a scene that shocked Qin Feiyang and the other 2 appeared. The shattered chi seas of the middle-aged man and the other 2 were instantly restored to their original state. Then, they activated their ultimate intents, and the will of the heavenly Tao erupted. Immediately, the ultimate intents charged toward Qin Feiyang and the other 2. At the same time, they also activated the moment of time and escaped without looking back. Chapter 40, 3:13. What's going on? Qin Feiyang and the other 2 looked at each other with shock in their eyes. Their shattered sea of qi had recovered so quickly. However, although they were shocked, they weren't dazed. After all, they had experienced all kinds of storms in the past few years. Clang! The 3 of them took out their sovereign weapons. Star Tower, god-slaying halberd, sky extinction sword. The three sovereigns attacked. The three sovereigns' ultimate intents were unable to resist and were instantly shattered. This was the killing power of a high-grade sovereign weapon. Even if they had the ultimate intents of the heavenly Tao, they could still crush them. To deal with a high-grade sovereign weapon, unless one had 3,000 incarnations, the sword of all evil, or the heaven-devouring beast, anyone would have to kneel and beg for mercy. This is Yu Lao, Neptune, and the dragon god's high-grade sovereign weapons are in their hands. It seems like they've already met with misfortune. The three sovereigns' expressions changed, and they tried even harder to escape. Humph. Qin Feiyang and the other two stared the backs of the three sovereigns, killing intent flashing in their eyes. With a cold snort, the three high-grade sovereign weapons flew out of their hands, crushing the void and the earth as they pressed down on the three sovereigns. Ah! With a scream, the bodies of the three sovereigns exploded, and blood dyed the sky red. Their divine souls still wanted to escape, but they were surrounded by the Star Tower's three sovereign weapons. The terrifying sovereign aura made them tremble. Qin Feiyang and the other two walked over, but they didn't put away the three sovereign weapons. They were worried that the three sovereigns would suddenly reform their bodies and catch them off guard. Yu Lao, Neptune, and the dragon god, did they die in your hands? The three sovereigns gloomily stared at Qin Feiyang and the other two sovereigns. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, "Didn't Dong Tianqian know? Didn't he tell you?" The three exchanged glances. When they met in the Forbidden Ocean, Dong Tianqian really did not mention this matter. I don't think there's a need to ask such a stupid question. Even their sovereign divine weapon has submitted to us. What kind of ending would they have? In comparison, I'm more interested to know what method you use to instantly repair your qi. Qin Feiyang looked at the three of them curiously. This should be a method. Furthermore, it was a technique that the Death God Army possessed. This meant that the members of the Death God Army should all have such means. Kill us. There was no fear in their eyes. As members of the Death God Army, they were already prepared to face death with equanimity. You're being naive again. Now that you've fallen into our hands, it'll be hard for you to even die. Madman laughed mockingly. Hearing this, the three of them trembled. If they were directly given death, they wouldn't mind. However, if he were to deprive them of their ultimate meaning or use soul-controlling techniques to control them, it would be a fate worse than death. The white-eyed wolf smiled and said, "Let's go. Bring them to the black tortoise boundary and find little Qin." As long as they could control them, it would be very easy to lure Dong Yiming and the others out of Qing Tian City. We won't let you succeed. The three of them roared and destroyed their own divine souls. Fortunately, the three sovereign divine weapons reacted quickly and suppressed the three of them in time. You're really not afraid of death? Madman frowned. Why did the members of the Death God Army look like death warriors? No. If you're still men, kill us now. The three of them roared. No matter what, they couldn't be controlled by Long Chen's soul-controlling technique. However, would such a small trick like provocation work on Qin Feiyang and the other two? Obviously, it was useless. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and swept up the three's divine souls. He then brought Madman, the white-eyed wolf, and the three sovereign divine weapons into the Devil Land. Seeing Qin Feiyang and the others coming again, Long Chen expressed his helplessness. He looked at the three of them and said, "Do you want me to give you the soul-controlling technique?" "Give it to us." The white-eyed wolf was slightly stunned and laughed. "Of course, we're happy to." "In your dreams." Long Chen rolled his eyes. Soon, the middle-aged man and the others were controlled by Long Chen. Qin Feiyang did not disturb Long Chen and returned to the tea garden. "Tell me, how many of you came this time?" Qin Feiyang sat at the table and asked the three of them. The three of them answered honestly. Including the commander, there are a total of 5,001 people. So many? The white-eyed wolf and madman were drinking wine. Their expressions froze when they heard this. All of you have grasped the will of the heavenly Tao? Madman quickly asked. Yes, the three of them nodded. I'll go. Madman was shocked. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were not much better. They never expected that there would be 5,001 people, and all of them had mastered the will of the Great Path. Qin Feiyang came back to his senses and asked, "What about the others?" The three of them said they followed Lu Yuntian and the others and have returned to the central dynasty. Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other. The inner demons and big cousin were really something. If these 5,000 people really came to the 4 great continents, it would be a disaster. How many people are there in the Death God army? Qin Feiyang asked. I don't know. The three of them shook their heads. What? You don't know? Qin Feiyang and the other two were stunned. What was going on? The three of them were all members of the Death God army. How could they not know how many members there were? The three of them said, "We are just ordinary members. We only know that there are 10 teams in the Death God army." 10 teams? Qin Feiyang and the other two were stunned. Yes, there are a total of 10 teams, and we belong to the 10th team. The reason why we don't know the situation of the other 9 teams is because the 10 teams have always been separated and don't interfere with each other. The three of them said honestly. The crazy one asked, "You mean that the 10th team has 5,000 members?" No, the 10th team has 10,000 members, and only half of them came to the 4 great continents. The three of them said, "Damn." Qin Feiyang, the crazy one, and the white-eyed wolf's eyes trembled. The 10th team alone had 10,000 members. In other words, there were 10,000 experts who had mastered the will of the Great Path. If one team had so many members, then what about the other 9 teams? They didn't dare to think about it. It seemed that the foundation of the Death God army was far beyond their imagination. The crazy one was unwilling to believe it. He looked at the three of them and asked, "You really don't know the exact number of people in the other 9 teams?" "We really don't know. Not to mention us. Even Dong Yiming doesn't know." The three of them shook their heads. Who is Dong Yiming? Qin Feiyang and the other two were suspicious. One of them said, "Dong Yiming is the commander who brought us to the 4 great continents." I see. Qin Feiyang nodded and said with a frown, "Since he's the commander, how can he not know the situation of the other teams?" "He's only the vice commander of the 10th team. He doesn't have enough authority." The only people who really know the situation of the 10 teams are the emperor, the ruler, the leader, and the commanders of the 10 teams. The three of them spoke one after another. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, "Then did the commander of the 10th team come this time?" "He didn't come. This time Dong Yiming led the team. However, if even we can't kill you, the Death God army will send at least 2 teams to kill you." The three of them said. The crazy one's pupils shrank, and he muttered, "They really think highly of us." Not to mention 2 teams. Even if it was only the 10th team, as long as the 10,000 members all came to the 4 great continents, it would be enough to make them suffer. Because now, in the Black Tortoise world, other than Qin Feiyang, the crazy one, the white-eyed wolf, and Long Qin, no one else had grasped the will of the heavens. Even if Qin Feiyang and the other 3 had heaven-defying means, they would have to retreat in the face of 10,000 experts who had grasped the will of the heavens, unless the king and the others helped. If it was 2 teams, they would need the help of Boss Ji and the others. Because this group of old people not only grasped the will of the heavens, but they also had 3,000 incarnations. One of them had the combat power of 3,000 people. But even if they could defeat 2 teams, what was the use? Because the Death God army had a total of 10 teams. If they defeated a team, there were still 8 teams. When the members of the 8 teams all came to the 4 great continents, even if Qin Feiyang and the 3 races tried their best, they would still die. The strength of the Death God army has seriously exceeded our expectations. The crazy one sighed. Yeah. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf nodded with a heavy expression. If they didn't know, they wouldn't be so stressed. But now that they knew the general situation of the Death God army, they felt like a huge rock was pressing on their hearts. Should we tell the king and the others? The crazy one asked. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and shook his head. It's better not to tell them for now. I agree too. If they know about this situation, they will probably be on tenterhooks and tremble in fear every day. Let's bear this pressure ourselves first. The white-eyed wolf took a deep breath. Even they almost couldn't bear this news, let alone the king and the others, because the king and the others were already very afraid of the ruler of the divine kingdom. If they knew about the Death God army now, they would definitely be terrified and worried. This would be very bad for the future situation. The crazy one let out a breath and looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. He asked, since Dong Yiming also doesn't know about the situation of the other 9 teams, should we still hunt him? Of course. Qin Feiyang nodded. His eyes flashed as he said in a deep voice, now, we have to obtain more ultimate intents. After robbing the beast race and the oceanic race twice, they had obtained more than 110,000 ultimate intents. They had given 3,000 to the 3 races, 6,000 to the Shadow Guards, and the ultimate intents given to Mu Tianyang and the others. In total, they had used about 55,000 ultimate intents. This meant that there were still more than 50,000 inheritances in their hands. However, these 50,000 plus inheritances could only nurture 9,000 people. 9,000 people and 6,000 shadow guards were enough to deal with 1 team, but they were still far from enough to deal with 10 teams of the Death God army. End of chapter. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.